Chapter 303. This godly thunderbolt was indeed very convenient and powerful. However, this was a one-time consumable yuan item. The array engravings on it, as well as some burning materials, made the power of this divine thunderbolt unquestionable. It wasn't expensive either. 5 million gold yuan. Li Zongjio didn't say anything. His expression didn't change either. San Tong's eyes lit up when he saw the divine thunderbolt. He had clearly witnessed the might of the divine thunderfire bomb. Back when he had been carrying out a mission outside, it had been a sure-kill mission. However, the other party had been prepared to fight to the death, so this divine thunderfire bomb had been thrown into the Blood Strike Guard's camp. At the time, this divine thunderbolt had caused a lot of damage. That time, San Tong had come into close contact with death. If he could get his hands on a godly thunderbolt, then he would be relatively safe. However, 7 million gold coins wasn't a small amount. Moreover, it was a one-time consumable item. Most of the time, it wasn't worth it. When he saw that Li Zongjio's expression didn't change, his heart skipped a beat. It seemed like this young man wasn't simple. Even the divine thunderbolt was nothing to him. He immediately led Li Zongjio down the path. The Big Dipper 5 Thunder Box. Inside the box are 5 Heavenly Dipper lightning pearls. As long as you use your elemental energy to trigger them, you will be able to release these 5 Heavenly Dipper lightning pearls. It will cover an area of 100 meters. Even if it is our Holy Flame City's city gate, under a single attack from this Heavenly Dipper lightning chest, half of it will collapse. The recommender said. The Big Dipper 5 Thunderbox in his hand had a metallic color flowing through it. There were also dragon engravings on the front and back of the box. It had to be said that the 7-star flame room possessed so much powerful yuan power that it should have been outlawed by an empire. However, the 7-star flame room hadn't declined. Instead, it had become more and more popular. What was the reason? Firstly, the usage of these yuan tools required the support of a powerful yuan power behind them. In order to withstand the attack of the yuan item, one needed a powerful yuan power. Li Zongjio remained unmoved. This time, it was the recommender's turn to be shocked. It seemed that such ordinary goods would not be able to enter Li Zongjio's eyes. That box of Heavenly Dipper 5 Thunder Chest was sold for 10 million gold coins. In terms of level, he was at level 3.5. If you're still not satisfied, please come this way. The recommender led Li Zongjio and San Tong into a corridor. There were things displayed on both sides of the corridor. These things could only be seen but could not be touched. Many people stopped to look at these things. He stared at the thing in front of him. Many people were also pointing and discussing animatedly because this place could be called the masterpiece of a madman. Everything in this corridor was powerful, but sometimes they were also extremely unstable. Some things had strange effects, and there were all kinds of situations. However, these things all came from the hands of a level 5 origin inscription master. Any item that was personally forged by a level 5 grandmaster was an earth-shattering existence. Now, it was placed here as an exhibition. When Li Zongjio arrived at the corridor, he saw something. The Black Bat Sword. A long black sword hung in the display window. There was nothing special about the sword's appearance, but there was a unique space inside the sword. Millions of black bats were captured in the Black Bat Sword. Moreover, they could survive well in the space inside the sword. Li Zongjio had taken a fancy to the Black Bat Sword not because he had great power and could release millions of bats in an instant, but because there was a small world inside the sword. Although this world might not be complete, at the very least, this sealed bat could survive in it. This was a very important point. Therefore, Li Zongjio wanted to buy the Black Bat Sword. However, the Black Bat Sword wasn't that useful. Many people didn't understand why such a simple Black Bat Sword would cost 50 million gold coins. The Black Bat Sword itself did not have any power. Release millions of bats? What was the use of that? If it was used to attack, it would be burned to a crisp. If he used it to escape as a cover or to cover his figure, he would also be like a fire that would burn him to ashes in a matter of minutes. There was no use at all. Unless one had a special hobby and liked to play with bats, then it could be kept. 50 million gold coins could be used to buy anything, But why did one have to buy such a useless sword? However, in Li Zongjiu's eyes, this sword was completely different. One had to know that the sword itself was not very powerful, but it could open up a small world. To Li Zongjiu, this kind of enlightenment was very precious. As for how to cultivate in the extreme black realm, he might be able to find some clues and ideas from it. This sword, I want it. Li Zongjiu pointed at the black bat sword and said, also, wrap up the divine thunderfire and the heavenly dipper 5 thunderbox for me. Li Zongjiu said directly. The person who recommended him was still in a daze. What was the meaning of this? Was he going to place an order just like that? Wasn't this too simple? He didn't even mention the price or ask before placing an order just like that. Such a forthright customer was simply a living Buddha. This was a rare opportunity, and it was an order of 10 million. It was simply too good to be true. These things were quickly prepared for Li Zongjiu. The person who recommended him followed Li Zongjiu's footsteps. However, Li Zongjiu seemed to be even more familiar with these things than he was. After casually ordering a few things, Li Zongjiu clapped his hands and placed his order. The things he had just selected were all from the 7-star fire room. They were currently in the experimental stage. Generally speaking, these things were more practical and risky. Sometimes, they might even be life-threatening. However, Li Zongjiu did not think too much about it. He looked like he was looking for some cheap goods, but in fact, he had a very good eye. Wear this set of Sky Heart armor yourself. There is a set of Sky Heart formation inside. It is enough to help you block a killing move. However, you probably won't be able to escape the next move. You'll just be able to live a little longer. Li Zongjiu said. He was obviously concerned about her, but his words sounded like he was going to a funeral. San Tong nodded and took it. She did not know why Li Zongjiu was so good to her. This was really a little flattering. However, San Tong also knew her mission. The inner armor on the young master's body was not the last line of defense. The last line of defense on the young master's body was her. Therefore, San Tong put on the Sky Heart armor to help Li Zongjiu block one more attack. Oh, isn't this young master Li Zongjiu? You have a girl with you. Could it be that young master Li came this time to sightsee? Li Zongjiu had just paid the bill. He had spent a total of nearly 100 million gold coins. It seemed that the money was not very good. It had not been long, but it was almost used up. It had not even been a month. Chapter 304. A few youngsters were walking towards them. The one walking at the front was the Sun Crane. At this moment, Bei Ho Liang was already walking behind the Sun Crane. The change in status was rather fast. No one would have thought that the Sun Crane would climb up so fast. In the blink of an eye, it was already standing above Bei Ho Liang. Bei Ho Liang was also helpless. Who asked this kid to be so lucky to be chosen by that young Master Yi, who even bet heavily on the Sun Crane? When these young masters bet, it was not so simple. They could easily bet tens of millions of purple yuan. However, the biggest prize was not these gold and silver treasures, but some extremely precious items. That Yi Guxing obviously had something very important to bet, which was why he was so interested in the Sun Crane. He also took care of the Sun Crane. He even specially asked someone to bring the Sun Crane to the 7 Stars Fire Room to buy some defensive items. After all, the contents of the Heavenly Day Medicine Manners examination were also very strange. Who knows, they might throw you into some dangerous place to gain experience. Therefore, it would not be wrong to prepare more items. You guys still don't know him, right? This is also someone from our Dingkuan province. He is mediocre, but I don't know what method he used to become the first in Dingkuan province. Li Zongjiu, your method is indeed brilliant. Even I can't see through it. Li Zongjiu's matter, in fact, those who slightly investigated it knew about it. However, they did not care about it at all. It was obvious that Li Zongjiu was the one behind it. No one knew what method he used to make the 5-colored soft intestine flower bloom. Just last night, young Master Yi Guxing also commented on this matter, saying that it was impossible. Therefore, Li Zongjiu clearly used some method. It was understandable that he used some method. However, when he was exposed, he should at least have some sense of shame. You're that Li Zongjiu? You're pretty good. Cheating and cheating. You country bumpkins are better at it. Pa. A young master also agreed with the Sun. Zhang Heshuan was now a popular person. At least before he failed, he would be popular. However, if you fail, it would be a different story. Even those people who were laughing and supporting you behind your back would not be able to stop themselves from coming over and stabbing you personally. But now, they naturally stood on Zhang Heshuan's side. As for Li Zongjiu, they naturally wanted to damage him as much as possible. They wanted to increase the momentum of their side. San Tong looked at these people who had come to provoke him and couldn't help but take a step forward. It seemed like he wanted to draw his sword for Li Zongjiu. However, when those young masters saw the 3 copper coins, their eyes lit up. They had seen many beautiful women and played with many of them. However, when they saw a woman like San Tong who was filled with a heroic spirit that didn't lose to a man, they couldn't help but be attracted to her. Such a woman was truly rare in this world. Oh, this lady is really pretty. Even in the Red Moon House, she would definitely be one of the top beauties. Another young master who looked like he had been drinking too much walked forward. He couldn't help but drool as he looked at San Tong's figure. He couldn't help but want to touch her body. San Tong was a little angry, but he didn't make a move. Li Zongjiu said indifferently, "Who allowed you to swallow your anger? If someone insults you, that's the same as insulting me." Li Zongjiu said indifferently. As soon as he said that, San Tong's eyes lit up. He had already given San Tong permission. It was time for him to make a move. He could no longer tolerate the filthy words of these people. At this moment, when he heard Li Zongjiu's words, he did not hesitate at all. He directly took a step forward and rushed towards the drunken man. "Oh, this chick has a temper. All of you go away. No one is allowed to help." The drunken man chuckled when he saw this. This was a good opportunity. Although he looked sallow and emaciated, it was because his strength was too strong. He had no choice but to release it. Otherwise, this constantly increasing strength would destroy his body. When it came to fighting, he was not afraid at all. However, powerful Yuan energy didn't mean powerful combat strength. The man's Yuan energy had already reached the ancestor level and had even merged with his Yuan spirit energy. However, in front of San Tong, he twisted the man's arm and slammed him down. The man's entire arm was twisted and broken. Under the intense pain, Wine Prince was enraged. His eyes flashed with a ferocious glint, and his aura rose rapidly. A terrifying force was gathering in his body. This was the Yuan spirit energy. Bang! San Tong hit the drunken man's head with his elbow. In an instant, the drunken man's aura disappeared and he fainted. The drunken man couldn't resist such a powerful attack. San Tong knocked him down in 2 moves. The others naturally didn't agree, but they weren't in a hurry. Instead, they mocked the drunken man. "This kid must have used up all his strength last night. Didn't he say that the fiercer he is at night, the fiercer he will be during the day? What a coward! But, Chick, you injured our brother. I'm afraid you'll have to come back with us and give us an explanation." As they spoke, the remaining 3 stepped forward. Except for the Crane Sun, everyone else stepped forward. San Tong didn't panic at all. If this had happened on the battlefield, the 4 of them would have been beheaded. His many years of experience in killing people was not just for show. However, San Tong couldn't kill them now. "Do you all want to go to jail? How dare you behave so atrociously in my 7-star fire room?" Just as San Tong was about to attack, another cold voice came from afar. Li Zongjiu couldn't help but look in the direction of the voice. He saw a woman dressed in white with a thick book in her hands. She seemed to have been disturbed while she was doing something. Seeing the appearance of this woman, the person who had received Li Zongjiu earlier hurriedly stepped forward. "Eldest Mississippi, eldest Miss?" The appearance of the white-clothed woman also made the young masters of the wealthy families somewhat uncomfortable. In this city, there weren't many people who could deal with these rich young masters. The woman in white in front of them was one of them. Her identity wasn't simple. She was the daughter of the big boss of the 7-star fire room. She was also the main manager of the room. She was only 20 years old, but she had already surpassed countless tycoons in business. She had a lot of wealth. Even if she tapped her fingers twice, it was more than what these people had. Naturally, she didn't put these people in her eyes. Chapter 305. The Young Lady of the Seven-Star Fire Chamber? Li Zongjio looked over and saw that the white-clothed lady's eyes were clear and bright. When she saw the young masters in front of her, she didn't have the slightest fluctuation. Instead, when the young masters saw her, they were like mice that saw a cat. One by one they shrank back. Only one of them was brave enough to take a step forward. Then he said to the white-clothed lady, "Young lady Song, this time, we didn't come here to cause trouble. They started it first. Some of our people were knocked unconscious." That person couldn't help but say. Now, there were indeed some of their people who were knocked out. The white-clothed lady glanced at San Tong. She knew that young Master Jiusei. Although his ability wasn't great, it wasn't bad either. At the very least, he was one of the better ones among this group of good-for-nothings. After being hit by a woman, you still have the face to complain. You still want to bully me with your numbers? All of you get out of here. Otherwise, I'll throw you out. The white-clothed lady said indifferently. The young masters all quieted down and stopped being so arrogant. They were familiar with the lady's temper and knew that if they didn't leave quickly, they would really be thrown out. "Brat, just you wait." After saying those words, he dragged the person on the ground and left. Li Zongjio glanced at the leaving Zhang Hexuan and frowned. This brat seemed to like to cause trouble. Some of the previous incidents were caused by this brat. "Since you're always looking for trouble, I'll deal with you tonight." With a thought, a mental power suddenly fell on Zhang Hexuan's body. This mental power was very hidden, even Zhang Hexuan himself didn't notice it. Zhang Hexuan and the others were driven away. Song Jiu looked at Li Zongjio and San Tong and put away the thick book in her hand. "Our seven-star fire room has not received you well. As for the disturbance caused by those people, our seven-star fire room is willing to give you a set of thunderous short arrows as compensation. What do you think?" As she spoke, a cloth bag appeared in Song Jiu's hand. There were 6 pitch-black arrows hidden in this set. The reason why it was called the thunderous short arrow was because when it was triggered, it was akin to a sonic boom. In fact, the sudden burst of speed could even surpass the sound of thunder. It had to be said that this was a set of weapons that could kill people in an instant. If it was a very short distance, even if the opponent was prepared, there was no way to escape under the short arrow. This is a treasure-level origin item. The entire 7 Stars Fire Room has only produced 13 sets of these thunderous short arrows because of the limited materials. When the recommender saw the set of thunderous short arrows, he was so shocked that his mouth fell open. He never thought that the young miss would offer such a high compensation. Although they were disturbed, they only needed to give some symbolic discount cards. There was no need to pay such a high price. This immediately caused everyone to be somewhat surprised. A treasure-grade origin tool was basically the work of a master who had reached the peak of perfection. Generally speaking, this kind of work would not be sold a second time. Many people spent a sky-high price to buy it, not to use it, but to collect it. The fetishes of the rich were unfathomable. Not only that, but the set in Song Jiu's hands was even more powerful. The materials used to make it were also the best of the best. Someone had once offered 4 million purple yuan, but this set of thunderous short arrows still hadn't been sold. Now, Li Zongjio and the others had only been slightly disturbed in the 7 Stars Fire Room. They had not suffered much, but they had directly taken away a set of thunderous short arrows worth 4 million purple yuan. It was almost equivalent to making up for Li Zongjio's expenses today and making a big profit. Who would not be willing to accept such a good deal? "Take it. You can keep it," Li Zongjio said indifferently. It could be seen that San Tong was very fond of this set of thunderous short arrows. This was a divine tool that could almost hit the target at close range. If one day San Tong was really forced to use this set of thunderous short arrows on the enemy, then it would be too late for regrets. When San Tong heard Li Zongjio's words, he immediately stepped forward and took the set of arrows, forcibly suppressing the joy in his heart. Song Jiu looked at the pair of master and servant very curiously. Although the value of the thunderous short arrow wasn't that high, The fact that he had given it to the bodyguard beside him meant that the relationship between the two of them wasn't ordinary. At the very least, Li Zongjio had absolute trust in Santong. "Let's go," Li Zongjio said. He did not say anything else. Was Li Zongjio supposed to thank him? If it was Li Zongjio's previous identity, if someone came to cause trouble while he was shopping in your shop, Li Zongjio would tear down your shop in a matter of minutes. You would have to compensate until you went bankrupt. He directly let it go because Li Zongjio's temper had become better. King City is different from other places. You have to be careful in everything you do. Just as Li Zongjio walked past Song Jiu suddenly said such irrelevant words. Santong thought that Song Jiu was talking about the grudge between Li Zongjio and Zhang Hexuan and the others. But Li Zongjio knew. Song Jiu had already discovered his spiritual tracing imprint when he had placed it on her. It seemed that Song Jiu's strength was also deeply hidden. Li Zongjio could not see through Song Jiu's strength at a glance. Even the aura of her yuan power was extremely weak. This meant that Song Jiu had a yuan weapon that could conceal her aura. As the biggest yuan equipment merchant here, it was not strange for him to have a few of these defensive gadgets in his hands. "I don't know where this madman came from," Song Jiu muttered in her heart. Her kind reminder had already been conveyed. Then, she called the guard in charge of the 7-star fire room over and gave him a good scolding. As the guard of the 7-star fire room, he was unable to prevent such a conflict from happening. If she had not appeared just now, it would have turned into a chaotic battle. In the end, the 7-star fire room would be the one to suffer. They had offended both sides, and the business would not be able to continue. Therefore, the guard's responsibility was very important. Today's scolding was to make them remember. Then, Li Zongjio and Santong also strolled around nearby. After buying so many yuan weapons today, Li Zongjio only took away the black bat sword. The rest of the items were left with Santong. There was only one day left until the Heavenly Day Medicine Manners assessment began. Nearly 3,000 geniuses from the 12 prefectures would eventually participate in this competition. Presumably, some of the extremely confident people were also making their final preparations. Night fell. Santong and Li Zongjio were both cultivating in their own rooms. Santong had heard of Li Zongjio's legend. The Yuan Dark Spike needed to be continuously trained and honed before it could unleash its terrifying power. Li Zongjio's room, on the other hand, was empty except for a burning candle. Chapter 306. In the northwest corner of the city, near the center, there was a restaurant that was named the Royal High Class Restaurant. For such a restaurant to have such a name, it was extraordinary. Aside from its deep background, the emperor of the Purple Mansion dynasty had once been a guest here. Later on, the restaurant became famous and was even named the Royal High Class Restaurant. If one wanted to stay in this restaurant, money alone was not enough. In a guest room on the 18th floor, Zhang Hexuan sat cross-legged on the bed. For cultivators like him, the bed seemed to be a place for cultivation and not a place for sleeping. Although Zhang Hexuan looked like a person who ate, drank and played, in reality, it was far from enough to rely on his talent. Behind others' backs, Zhang Hexuan's hard work was unmatched by ordinary people. Ever since he discovered his innate talent, he had never slept a single night. Whenever night fell, it would be time for him to cultivate. Cultivating the pill refining mantra, pill refining mantra, pill refining mantra, pill refining mantra and pill refining mantra. The entire Royal High Class Restaurant emitted a dazzling light at night, as if it had become one of the most dazzling jewels in Royal City. There was no need to doubt the safety of this place. There were a total of 3 Peak Sky Origin Ancestor-level powerhouses taking turns to guard the restaurant. Any threat that approached would be discovered instantly. Most importantly, with such a huge signboard here, who would dare to rush into the royal family restaurant to kill people? Although Yi Gushing arranged for me to stay here, it seems like he is treating me well, but more importantly, he is putting me under house arrest. Zhang Hexuan sneered in his heart. Talent was one thing, fate was another. Although he had talent, he was not as good as Yi Gushing, who had a better fate. In order to make himself a pawn in Yi Gushing's hand, in order to prevent others from coming into contact with Zhang Hexuan, Yi Gushing had arranged for him to stay here the moment he entered the city. He had even arranged for the nobles to follow him every day. Even if Zhang Hexuan was helpless, he was only fit to be a pawn in Yi Gushing's gambling game. Zhang Hexuan was not willing to become such a pessimistic person. Tomorrow was the day of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's assessment. Once he passed, he would definitely become a man above others. At the very least, no one would be able to dictate his life and death. I must carve out a path of blood. No one can stop me from reaching the peak. Zhang Hexuan's eyes were sharp. At this moment, his aura had also soared. At this moment, the candle flame on the table suddenly flickered. Zhang Hexuan couldn't help but look over, but he happened to see a figure under the candlelight. Who is it? Zhang Hexuan, who was instantly alert, immediately shouted. At the same time, a dangerous aura instantly spread from his back to the back of his head. Intuition told Zhang Hexuan that someone was coming. It was the danger of jealousy. The newcomer sat down in front of the table. Even the carpet is made of white tiger skin. He sure knows how to enjoy himself. Li Zongjio said calmly. Not only that, but the wine on the table was also a century-old vintage. Just a single night's worth of consumption in a room like this was enough for a Yuan general-grade powerhouse to earn over a decade. It's you! Zhang Hexuan saw clearly that it was actually Li Zongjio. To be honest, Zhang Hexuan didn't think that Li Zongjio was a threat. In fact, he didn't even put Li Zongjio in his eyes. This was because Zhang Hexuan was confident in his own strength. Although I don't know how you sneaked in, you'd better get out of here. This kind of place isn't for someone like you to casually enter. Zhang Hexuan walked down from the bed, but he still stood by the bed and said to Li Zongjio calmly. At this moment, Zhang Hexuan was also thinking about how Li Zongjio knew his whereabouts and where he stayed. Could it be that Yi Gushing revealed it? Hee, you're quite an interesting person. Are you going to write a will? Li Zongjio asked. When he heard Li Zongjio's words, Zhang Hexuan couldn't help but laugh heartily. Ha! Li Zongjio, do you really think that this is some rural place? Do you really think that you can kill me? You think you can? Zhang Hexuan said disdainfully. However, although Zhang Hexuan didn't believe that Li Zongjio would dare make a move, he still took a step forward and walked in the direction of the door. No one knew what would happen in the face of such a lunatic. However, Zhang Hexuan was still extremely calm on the surface. This is a high-class restaurant of the royal family. There will always be a peak Yuan ancestor powerhouse overseeing this place. Killing someone here is tantamount to walking right into a trap. Now, I'm going to call someone to chase you out. As he said that, Zhang Hexuan's body flashed and he was about to press a button on the wall. However, he realized that Li Zongjio had appeared beside him without him noticing. Furthermore, he seemed to be holding something in his hand that suddenly fell towards his arm. Bang! When Zhang Hexuan was hit, he knew what Li Zongjio was holding in his hand. Mysterious lightning hammer. Bang! Zhang Hexuan's entire body smashed onto the floor. When the mysterious lightning hammer fell on his arm, it had already broken. Li Zongjio, you're courting death. Zhang Hexuan roared at Li Zongjio as he circulated the weak Yuan power in his body. Li Zongjio stepped forward once again. With a bang, the mysterious lightning hammer in his hand fell on the head of the Sun. Grade 9 Yuan Master? Can you be any more trashy? He had never imagined that he would have to assassinate such a person. For Li Zongjio, this was indeed a disgrace. However, Li Zongjio didn't want it. Something uncertain might happen in the future. Hence, before this Sun became a threat, he would just directly eliminate it. Perhaps in the eyes of others, this was a very simple competition between geniuses. However, Li Zongjio actually used such an assassination method. It was really ungentlemanly and unrestrained. Li Zongjio wanted to say that. Yes, I am ungentlemanly and unrestrained. Even if I want to kill you, what can you do? If you have the ability, then stand up again. With another hammer strike, Li Zongjio made sure that the Sun Crane's head was completely shattered. Li Zongjio grabbed the corpse of the Sun Crane and threw it out of the window. After a few seconds, a loud bang resounded at the entrance of the royal restaurant. It alarmed the entire defense system of the imperial restaurant. Soon, a few men in black directly descended from the sky and landed in front of the corpse. When they saw the corpse, one of them suddenly widened his eyes. Oh no! The Yi family's third young master repeatedly warned them to keep an eye on this person. However, they didn't expect that this person would fall from the restaurant on his own accord. It's not suicide. He was killed by a hammer. The murderer is still nearby. Search for him. One of the older men said after observing for a while. There was actually someone who dared to directly attack, openly committing murder in front of the imperial restaurant in Royal City. If such a big matter were to spread, who would dare to stay in the imperial restaurant in the future? Just as the experts of the imperial restaurant were scattered in all directions to search for the suspicious person. Li Zongjio, who was dressed in black, disappeared into the night. Before becoming an evil lord and an alchemy saint, Li Zongjio was best at killing people. If he could kill, then he would face them head-on. If he couldn't, then he would poison them from behind and use underhanded methods. Assassination? It was a common occurrence. Zhang Hexuan's body was smashed into pieces. A few seconds ago, Zhang Hexuan was still full of ambition and a promising future. He even directly said that he wanted to be ranked 7th on the newcomer ranking, or even higher. However, at this moment, it was a solid, cold corpse. Even the imperial restaurant, in order to suppress this matter, directly hid the corpse of the Sun and didn't announce the death of the Sun to the public. However, the news of Zhang Hexuan's death immediately reached Yi Guxing's ears. Chapter 307. You really have guts, daring to kill people in the imperial restaurant. Yi Guxing sneered when he heard the news. Now that Zhang Hexuan was dead, all the money he had bet would go down the drain. All these things would belong to someone else. In a gambling game like this, such things would happen from time to time. That was why Yi Guxing had arranged for Zhang Hexuan to stay in the royal restaurant. At the very least, this was his territory and it would be absolutely safe. Even so, he had still been killed by someone. Investigate. I don't care who is behind this, but you must find the culprit. Even if we have to turn Royal City upside down, we must find the culprit. Yi Guxing shouted angrily, and his subordinates hurried to carry out his orders. Good, the few of you. How dare you use such despicable means? You'd better not let me find any clues. Yi Guxing's eyes shone with a cold light. At their level, the competition between young masters was even more intense. Anything could happen. For example, the maid who had been serving you for so many years was actually a spy sent by them. That would not be strange at all. If you revealed even the slightest flaw, it would be very likely that you would be caught by the other party and killed. In a confrontation of such a level, it would be extremely dangerous to have even the slightest clue. Logically speaking, they wouldn't do such a thing, because it was extremely stupid. Yi Guxing, who had calmed down, was also thinking. However, he was sure that these people couldn't be behind this matter. Otherwise, no one would dare to be so bold. To kill someone in the royal restaurant openly. The one who had done it must be a peak sky origin ancestor assassin, or even stronger. To be able to mobilize an assassin of such a level, the Rain Tower must be involved. Afi, go to the Rain Tower and investigate immediately. Find out who is behind this. Yes, young master. Yi Guxing's blood vessels were about to burst. He couldn't believe that such a thing had happened. Just as Yi Guxing and the imperial family restaurant were in a terrible fix, a voice suddenly rang out. Li Zongjio, who had done such an earth-shattering thing, returned to his own in like an ordinary person. He blew out the candles on the table. The next morning, Li Zongjio had also arrived at the entrance of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor's Academy early in the morning with the examination papers in his hands. The Heavenly Stellar Medicine Manor was located in a primitive area in the southern district. One could still see some streets and streams of people at the front of the Medicine Manor. However, behind the Medicine Manor, there was an endless mountain range and an even wider medicinal forest. Among the 3,000-plus candidates who had rushed over from various places, there were also some of the top geniuses who had emerged from the various prefectures and cities. With so many geniuses gathered in this place, There was naturally a kind of vigorous spirit. However, there was more of a feeling of competition between each other. Feeling so many extraordinary spirits gathered in this place was a kind of symbol of prosperity. If the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor were to randomly select a few people, it would be enough to nurture some top-notch talents. Moreover, the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was selected from so many people. It was precisely because of such a steady stream of talents that the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was able to achieve its current glory. Li Zongjio allowed Santong to move freely. With so many defensive yuan weapons, it was basically impossible for him to die under normal circumstances. Moreover, in Royal City, there were not many people who could be as daring as Li Zongjio to directly kill people. After all, such people were in the minority today. At this moment, everyone had gathered in the front hall of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. The examination papers had already been submitted. Only by submitting the examination papers would one be able to enter the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. This place was called the Outer Medicine Manor. Li Zongjio, like many others, stood in a shady area and waited. Li Zongjio. Just as Li Zongjio was waiting, a voice suddenly called out to him. When he turned his head, he happened to see a woman in a yellow robe approaching. Although her clothes were brightly colored, the expression on her face was still cold. It seemed that no one could approach her. Once they did, they would definitely be injured by the cold air on her body. "It's you?" Li Zongjio recognized the person in front of him, but he had forgotten her name. This person was one of the winners in the Black North Mega City, Yao Lei. Compared to Zhang Hemang, Yao Lei's talent was definitely not just a little bit worse. The reason why Yao Lei was brought here was most likely just to make up the numbers, not to say that Yao Lei was really talented. Among the nearly 3,000 people present, at least 2,000 people were more outstanding than Yao Lei. Yao Lei was also clear in her heart, so she felt a little nervous at this moment. One must know that in the Black North Mega City, Yao Lei's talent was definitely top-notch. However, at this moment, she was at the level of a passerby. Almost everyone's aura was stronger than hers. Seeing so many experts gathered here made Yao Lei nervous. Therefore, when she saw Li Zongjio, she could not help but shout out. Compared to the Sun, Li Zongjio was more familiar with this Li Zongjio. What a coincidence! After Yao Lei approached Li Zongjio, she felt a little more relaxed. Everyone's body was emitting a strong fighting spirit. In addition, their strength was not weak. Among a group of experts, they would feel a lot of pressure. This also showed that Yao Lei's willpower was not strong. A true expert would not be affected by this aura. He would directly ignore it or even surpass it. However, these people were useless to Li Zongjio. They were all trash. Li Zongjio did not have the intention to compete with these children. Therefore, he just stood quietly at the side, waiting for it to start. The sooner it started, the sooner it would end. He did not come to this Heavenly Day Medicine Manor to learn, but to go to the secret place of this Heavenly Day Medicine Manor to investigate. In terms of alchemy skills, Li Zongjio was more than qualified to be the dean of this Heavenly Day Medicine Manor. Li Zongjio replied indifferently. To be honest, Li Zongjio was not here to make friends. Therefore, although Yao Lei looked quite beautiful, Li Zongjio was not interested. "Have you heard about Zhang Sun? He seemed to be under too much pressure last night, so he jumped off a building to commit suicide," Yao Lei said. However, in her heart she was muttering. This Li Zongjio did not have any feelings at all. "I took the initiative to talk to you, but you did not say anything. You are even colder than him." The three of them came from the Black North Giant City. Therefore, Yao Lei used this matter to start a conversation with Li Zongjio. "Oh." Li Zongjio still replied indifferently. No one was shocked by this matter, and no one was even curious. It seemed that for Li Zongjio, joining this Heavenly Day Medicine Manor was the most important thing. He didn't care about anything else. Zhang Sun was not the only one who could not bear the pressure and jumped off a building. In the past, there were many people who did the same thing. Some did it before the exam, but most did it after the exam. I really did not expect that someone like Zhang Sun would commit suicide. Li Zongjio glanced at Yao Lei beside him. Of course, he knew how people died. However, in the end, people said that it was a suicide. Naturally, it was to minimize the impact. Killing was not tolerated in Monarch City, but to say that it was a suicide to the public, that should be fine. The pressure before the exam was too great, so he could not bear it and jumped off a building. This kind of thing, no one could control, right? All candidates reached the Heavenly Pond rainforest in 3 minutes. Just when Yao Lei wanted to continue chatting with Li Zongjio to relieve the pressure, a voice suddenly came from above the courtyard. Heavenly Pond rainforest. When they heard this voice, some people reacted quickly and immediately rushed in the direction of the Heavenly Pond rainforest. In the forest behind the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor, there was a specially developed rainforest called the Heavenly Pond rainforest. There was even a Yuan rune formation set up here that could change and adjust the weather. It was quite magical. In order to create this rainforest, they had spent a lot of money. Only the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor had the capital to create such a rainforest. Chapter 308. Thousands of figures moved at almost the same time and rushed towards the rainforest. During this process, there were people obstructing and restraining each other. Li Zongjio jumped and left Yao Lei behind as he rushed forward. Li Zongjio naturally knew where the Heavenly Pond rainforest was. Hence, when Li Zongjio flew out, he saw that many people had already found their direction and were rushing forward. You don't have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Yao Lei was so angry that she stomped her feet. This guy doesn't know how to take care of girls at all. He directly left Yao Lei behind and went forward alone. Even if you mentioned it out of politeness, it was still better than not saying anything. However, Li Zongjio just left like that. Yao Lei had no choice but to fly up by herself. However, when Yao Lei and some other people with slower reactions moved, they realized that their feet suddenly became extremely heavy. Not good. It's the Gravity Yuan Rune Array. Yao Lei was not the only one. Some of the people who were about to fly directly fell from the sky because they could not control themselves. Bang. Gravity Yuan Rune Array. The Heavenly Star Medicine Manor is still here. They are really willing to spend money. Someone who had just climbed over the wall fell down. He fell into the corner and ate a mouthful of wild grass. They were extremely impressed by the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's actions. Only the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor could spend so much money to test the new students. It was impossible to complete the Gravity Yuan Rune Array that covered 3,000 people without more than 10 Yuan Rune Masters working at the same time. Whoosh! Li Zongjio was one of the few people who rushed to the front. He already had a premonition of the gravity, so it didn't affect Li Zongjio at all. If he paid a little attention, he wouldn't be tripped. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure flew over Li Zongjio's head. How dare he behave so atrociously above the evil lord's head? Li Zongjio wanted to see it. When he raised his head, he only saw a shadow. He could only see that the person was a woman, and she was wearing an extremely inconvenient long royal dress. It was as if they were here for a vacation. It was simply strange that there were such people here. The other party's Yuan power was extremely powerful. Within a few leaps, he had already flashed past the buildings of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor and directly entered a forested area. Following which, his figure disappeared. That was fast. Just as Li Zongjio was about to exert his strength, another white-clothed man flew over Li Zongjio's body. Boom! From the looks of it, it was chasing after the woman in the palace dress. These young people are really full of energy. Li Zongjio wasn't going to waste his energy on this. 3 minutes was still early, and there was plenty of time. After that, more and more people overtook Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio was not slow either. When he entered the Celestial Pond rainforest, he arrived at the location of the exam elder. Li Zongjio finally understood why these people were gathered here. Around the Celestial Pond rainforest, there were 1,000 medicinal cauldrons placed. First come, first served. There would be no one left if they were late. At the front, there were already nearly 20 people sitting down. Following Li Zongjio, there were nearly 30 people who arrived in the same batch. Those who have arrived find a place to sit down. The medicinal cauldrons were arranged in a square formation. In front of these cauldrons, there was a vast cold pond. Celestial Pond. The celestial pond itself was a cold pond. In addition to the surrounding rainforest, it was extremely humid. After such a formation was set up, it was obvious that everyone was going to refine medicine here. In less than 2 minutes, this place was already filled with people. Some people, seeing that they couldn't catch up with the people in front, started to fight. However, those who were eliminated were directly sent flying by the exam elder with a wave of his hand. These people were sent flying and landed at the side. They could only regret that they weren't faster just now. That way, they wouldn't have lost this opportunity. I'm eliminated just like that. When Yao Lei arrived, she was among the last batch of people to arrive, which was why she arrived late. She simply couldn't believe her eyes. She was disqualified just like that. However, like Yao Lei, there were hundreds of people who were eliminated within these 3 minutes. In the end, only 2,000 people entered the official examination. When Yao Lei saw Li Zongjio sitting in front of a medicinal cauldron without turning his head to look at her, she suddenly realized that the gap between her and Li Zongjio, and even those people, wasn't decided after they sat down. Instead, it was decided from the very beginning. The gap between them was insurmountable. After letting out a bitter laugh, Yao Lei turned around and left in an extremely disappointed manner. However, there were even more people who were unable to accept this reality. They cried and made a ruckus by the side. However, the judge elder had set up a yuan power wall that blocked all of these people outside. Even their voices were unable to be transmitted in. The competition in the path of the strong had begun the moment one learned how to breathe. No one would wait for you. Everyone would only think about how to surpass you. If you failed, you failed. No one would sympathize with you. However, the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was quite humane. For the next month, everyone could continue to stay in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor and listen. If they performed well during this 1 month, they still had a chance to be accepted into the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. However, now they could only wait outside. Some of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor students, who had been prepared beforehand, politely asked everyone to leave. After all, there were not many instructors in the Medicine Manor. Therefore, they had chosen to leave some simple tasks to the students to share the burden. Each of you will have a set of medicinal ingredients in front of you. You are not required to use all of your ingredients, nor are you allowed to use your own ingredients. The time limit is 14 hours. The winner will be determined by the quality of the pills refined. Now, let the pill refinement begin. The exam elder waved his hand and a ray of light shot into the sky. Then, the weather above the rainforest underwent an extremely drastic change. Rumble. Dark clouds surged and thunder rumbled. Everyone had yet to begin their pill refinement, but they had already been dealt such a blow. The white-clothed man sitting in the second seat glanced at the changes in the sky and smiled as he spoke to the lady in palace robes in front of him. The Heavenly Pond rainforest is most famous for its torrential rain. Su Li, you should be careful. If your dress gets dirty, it will be very difficult to wash it. This set of cypress green dress from the Ni Chang Pavilion must be quite expensive. Hearing the white-clothed man's words, Mo Su Li, who was wearing the cypress green dress, shot an extremely cold glance at him. So what if it's expensive? In any case, I will only wear this dress once. This lady was Mo Su Li. She was the disciple of the Eastern Victory State's medicine sovereign, Mo Su Li. Just her birth alone had already surpassed many people who were working hard. A casual word from the medicine sovereign would be enough for an ordinary person to enjoy for the rest of their life. Mo Su Li's innate talent was great. In addition to the medicine sovereign's guidance, wouldn't it be like adding wings to a tiger? This kind of person was born with a golden spoon in his mouth. Ordinary people simply couldn't catch up to him. Therefore, a piece of clothing that was worth a few 100,000 would be thrown away after wearing it once. Only someone like Mo Su Li could afford to spend it. The white-clothed man couldn't help curling his lips. What a nouveau riche. This white-clothed man wasn't a simple person either. Since Mo Su Li was able to speak to him, it indirectly proved that his identity wasn't simple. This person's identity was one of the 4 great young masters of the Tianyan dynasty, Mu Qingyun. The Mu family was known as a family of generals. Currently, There were a total of 3 generals holding positions in the military. Although they were scattered in different places, it was enough to prove the strength of the Mu family. They originally thought that the descendants of the Mu family would mostly be talented generals. However, who would have thought that Mu Qingyun would suddenly be born? From a young age, he displayed an extremely strong innate talent. This instantly made the entire Mu family overjoyed. Originally, in this family, from top to bottom, everyone was a boorish fellow who only knew how to fight. But now, there was finally a talent who understood alchemy. Such a good talent naturally couldn't be wasted. Although the rules of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor were very strict, if they were to reject a single seedling like Mu Qingyun, it would probably incur the wrath of the entire Mu family. It was even possible that the 3 great generals would come to visit them. Chapter 309. After hearing the examiner's request, everyone began to check the herbs in their hands. After some exchanges, they realized that the herbs in their hands were all different. Moreover, the quality of the herbs was also different. Those who were closer to the front would have higher quality herbs. As for those who were closer to the back, they were basically given a bunch of random herbs. This move was very ruthless as it directly gave such an ending. So what if it was unfair? The fairness of this world was achieved through strength. If you didn't have enough strength, then there would be no corresponding fairness. Because everyone's herbs were different, they weren't allowed to exchange and could only use their own herbs. Even if the types of herbs were the same, but the refining method was different, the refined pills would also be different. This was the charm of the pill. It was not always the same. Sometimes, if you took a wrong step, you would accidentally refine some new pills. You could become famous in one fell swoop. However, this kind of situation was rare. Even if it was by chance, it had to be built on a solid foundation. Not everyone could come up with a new formula. In his previous life, Li Zhongjiu had refined pills for 3,000 years. What kind of pill had he not seen before? Therefore, with the herbs in his hands, he could tell what kind of herbs to refine with just a quick glance. I can refine a level 3 fire dragon pill. If I'm lucky, it might be able to reach the level of level 4. Only Li Zhongjiu had the confidence to refine a level 3 pill to the level of a level 4 pill. As for the rest of the people, just the medicinal herbs in their hands were enough to give them a headache, because among these medicinal herbs, there were many. Among the herbs, the highest quality was only the 300-year-old herbs. To be able to refine a level 3 pill was already incredible. However, some people were confident in their own strength. Immediately, they opened their cauldrons to refine pills. This was a test of how well one had collected pill recipes. If one had more experience, then they would be able to refine more powerful pills. If one did not know how to use these medicinal ingredients, then it was very likely that one would miss the combination of the medicinal ingredients in one's hands. Boom! When more than 10 examinees started to circulate their elemental energy and started to cultivate their cauldrons, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck down from the sky. Thunderstorm weather. However, when the examinees looked up, they realized that only this rainforest area had such weather. In other places, it was still bright and cloudless. That was indeed the case. Shit! In this stormy weather, my elemental fire will definitely be affected. Some of the examinees immediately came to a realization. In this kind of stormy weather, there was interference from the outside world. Alchemy itself required concentration, so there were some alchemy rooms specially set up for you. However, the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor needed everyone to refine pills in this stormy weather. What kind of operation was this? It was clear that he wanted them to blow up their furnaces. Many people did not have such experience. When the downpour of rain fell, many of the pill furnaces were extinguished, and the medicinal ingredients inside were turned into a pile of waste. No! Someone shouted loudly. This was their chance to become a disciple of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor. How could this be? He couldn't believe it. It could even be said that it was over before it even started. The pain brought about by such a thing was hard for them to accept. At the very least, they had to refine the pill. Before coming here, they had heard that the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor's assessment was extremely difficult. However, now they finally knew the truth. This test was so out of the ordinary. Many people were wailing. When the pill furnaces were extinguished, it meant that they had lost their chance. Hence, it was useless to do anything now. Hee, this is really interesting. I almost fell for it. In a corner, Kuan Erishur, who came from Kuan Castle, emitted a blue flame from his palm. Because the temperature of the flame within the pill furnace was extremely high, it caused the surrounding raindrops to fall to the side and were directly burned away. It formed a vacuum. Obviously, Kuan Erishur had experience in refining pills in this stormy weather. Many people followed suit and released the flame within the pill furnace. However, this increased the difficulty of refining pills. At the same time, the consumption of elemental energy was extremely terrifying. They might not be able to last until the end of refining the pill. As for those with rich elemental energy, they naturally did not have to worry about this. He directly propped up an elemental energy barrier and blocked the raindrops from the outside world. Mo Su Li took off the bracelet on his wrist. With a light flick, it flew into the air. Immediately, a 5-colored light spread out and enveloped Mo Su Li. He is really rich. He actually used an elemental item to block the rain. Beside him, Mu Qingyun could not help but smack his lips. He didn't have such a heroic spirit, but his origin energy wasn't weak either. He covered the medicinal cauldron in front of him and allowed the rainwater to fall on his body. However, he wasn't simple either. After all the rainwater fell on his body, he didn't get wet. Instead, under his control, the rainwater was gently discharged and flowed to the ground along the corner of his clothes. After the initial panic, Lin Fan's expression changed. Towards the end, they were able to easily calm down. Moreover, they were very familiar with their own situation. The exam elders stood on a tree branch and looked down at the remaining 1,000 people below. They were all immersed in their training. Thousands of elemental energies were released and the entire Heavenly Pond rainforest was formed into a colorful aura. This person is a little interesting. The exam elder's gaze instantly fell on Li Zongjio. Among the 1,000 examinees present, only Li Zongjio did not use any elemental energy to block the rain. He allowed the raindrops to fall on his body and drip into the pill furnace. At the same time, he also refined the raindrops into the pill furnace. Such a terrifying method caused the exam elder's eyes to flash. To be able to achieve such a level, it was not easy. This flame, what a pure energy! His gaze immediately focused on Li Zongjio's flame. On the field, other than Li Zongjio, the flames of the other examinees were also formed by a special elemental energy flame. However, Li Zongjio's flame was restrained. This meant that Li Zongjio had very good control over his flame, unlike the others. Under the situation where his face was covered in flames, it gave off the feeling that he wanted to tell everyone that his flame was different. However, no matter how deeply Li Zongjio hid it, the few elite examinees were still able to notice it. After all, there was not much difference between them. Furthermore, even if he wanted to hide the power of the obsidian flame, it was not such an easy thing to do. That guy, where did he come from? What a strong flame. If I were to exchange blows with him, I'm afraid that this flame would be enough to make me suffer. Mo Su Li and Mu Qingyun simultaneously looked towards Li Zongjio's direction. There was also Kuan Erishur, who came from Kuan Castle. The flame in Kuan Arashi's hand was a wisp of light blue energy. This was a type of elemental fire that was born in Kuan Castle. It was called the Kuan Blue Flame. When the Kuan Blue Flame was at its peak, there was naturally nothing to say. However, just a moment ago, Kuan Erishur clearly felt that the Kuan Blue Flame in his hand actually emitted a trace of fear. And the target of this fear was Li Zongjio's direction. Unknowingly, Li Zongjio had already attracted the attention of these young experts. However, Li Zongjio was completely unaware of it. He did not care about their gazes and only focused on refining the pill in his hand. Chapter 310. Originally, refining a peak third-grade pill was already the limit. But now, I have a chance to steadily improve. Li Zongjio looked at the sky full of raging lightning and his heart couldn't help but tremble. As time passed, Quite a number of people were defeated one after another. While resisting the rain, they were also refining pills. This was not something that everyone could do. Under the situation of multitasking, it was very easy to break the balance. Refining pills under such extreme weather was a great challenge for them. More than half of the time had passed. Those who were able to persevere at this moment were basically able to successfully refine pills. Of course, this was on the premise that there were no other variables. The invigilating elder standing on the tree trunk nodded his head when he saw that there were less than 700 people left. Instantly, the roaring thunderbolts in the sky began to descend. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying raging lightning fell in front of Li Zongjio. There was a person who was concentrating on refining pills. He was immediately frightened by the loud noise and jumped up in fright. Of course, it was only the pill furnace in his hand. With a bang, black smoke rose up. The black smoke was to tell him that he had failed. When this happened, that person stood there in a daze. But why is there lightning? This is not fair. However, no one stood up for him. Instead, a heavenly star medicine manner disciple went up to him and pulled him out to prevent him from affecting the other candidates. Boom! Another bolt of lightning fell in the crowd. Although it didn't hurt anyone, many people's pill furnaces were still frightened to the point of extinguishing. One must know that the sound of thunder exploding in one's ears was already a terrifying thing. If it was anyone else, who wouldn't panic? Those who could really do it were probably the top few people. Even Emo Suli was a little flustered. However, with her powerful strength and quality, she still continued to focus on refining pills. When the lightning fell, it wasn't directly aimed at people. But just this momentum was enough to bring a great shock to people. The lightning continued to fall. A third of the people had already been eliminated when the raging lightning struck. Now, there were less than 500 people left. The Heavenly Star Medicine Manor only had 300 slots for recruitment. Everyone was thinking that as long as they persevered a little longer, they would be able to successfully refine the pills and join the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. They must persevere. However, the few people who were at the top were desperately trying to raise the quality of the pills. I've succeeded. Middle grade rank 2. A skinny man suddenly clapped his hands, and the pill flew into his hand. He knew from the start that this test would not be so easy. Therefore, he did not choose the combination of the highest grade of medicinal herbs. Instead, he took a step back and only refined a second-grade middle-grade pill. However, for many people who had not even refined a pill, this was already considered very good. Although it wasn't the best, compared to so many people who had yet to succeed, he already had a great chance to join the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Many people only wanted to refine the pills to a higher grade. However, they did not know that the most important criterion for refining pills was naturally to refine the pills. If you failed to refine the pills, then no matter what grade you set at the beginning, it would still be a failure. Following the first successful refinement, many others followed suit and successfully refined their elixirs. Emo Suli flipped his hands and spat out a lotus-like aura from his hands. Immediately, the power of the lotus-like aura surrounded the alchemy cauldron. Then, one could see a pill slowly rising from the alchemy cauldron. Middle grade rank 3. Not bad. Emo Suli heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. However, the arrogance in his eyes was not concealed at all. Being able to refine a high-grade Tier 3 medicinal pill under such circumstances was something that many people could only admit their inferiority. Even the examiner, Zhang Geya, who was standing on the tree, could not help but nod his head. As expected of the medicine sovereign's disciple. His ability was indeed well-deserved. Hee, I've succeeded too. Mu Qingyun let out a hearty laugh as his hand moved. As his hands moved, a domineering aura that came from the highest heavens was directly integrated into the pill in his hand. The flames within some of the surrounding pill furnaces also trembled. Just this aura alone was already enough to cause people to raise their eyebrows. The medicinal pill in his hand actually gave off a mighty and domineering feeling as if he was holding a general's sword. It was truly amazing. It's also a high-grade rank 3 pill. Mu Qingyun couldn't help but rub his nose. Although he did not have so many tools on him, his ability was still sufficient. Taking out a high-grade rank 3 pill was also extremely cool. Buzz. A huge winged fish seemed to descend from the sky. Amidst the endless thunderstorm, it crashed into one of the pill cauldrons. Boom! In an instant, it seemed as if all the essence within a 100-meter radius had been sucked dry. Almost everyone looked over. Such a rumbling aura, such a terrifying aura. However, the pill furnace in front of him directly exploded with a boom. However, a figure very steadily grabbed the pill in his hand and walked out of the pitch-black smoke. This person was the Kuan Castle's Kuan Arashir. Peak rank 3 pill. Shue Kuan pill. Kuan Arashi's eyes were also emitting confidence and pride. This was the attitude of declaring victory. When they saw the pill in Kuan Arashi's hand, Mo Suli and Mu Qingyun were both shocked. Mu Qingyun was stunned for a while before he quickly clapped his hands and cheered. He was almost stunned. He actually had such strength. Amazing, amazing. Brother, you're really awesome. You're not bad yourself. Kuan Arashir also said with a smile. However, these people were no longer a threat. There was still one more person. Kuan Arashir turned around and looked at Li Zongjio, who was still controlling the pill furnace. His pill has obviously been successfully refined. Why is he not opening the furnace to take the pill? Kuan Arashir muttered in his heart. This Li Zongjio seemed to be waiting for something. Mu Qingyun also noticed the abnormality on Li Zongjio's side. Could it be that he wanted to hold it in? There were less than 10 minutes left before the end. The exam elder suddenly looked up at the sky. At this moment, the thunderclouds in the sky seemed to have all gathered above Li Zongjio's head. As Li Zongjio released his aura, it immediately attracted the thunderclouds in the Yuan rune array. One after another, furious lightning struck down. The elders who were controlling the Yuan rune formation also cried out in alarm. What's going on? Why is the Yuan rune array activated by itself? Not good, it's being controlled by someone. Li Zongjio directly controlled the Yuan rune array. At the same time, he pushed the Yuan rune array's power to the maximum. Suddenly, the lightning energy that continuously fell formed a scene of countless lightning dragons. Those who saw this scene couldn't help but hide to the side. Oh my God, what is this kid trying to do? Is he trying to commit suicide? Damn, this is too fierce. It wasn't just the examinees. Even some of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor students couldn't help but curse when they saw this scene. He's trying to temper the pill. When Mu Qingyun saw this scene, he immediately cried out in surprise. Even Mo Suli, who had a cold expression, couldn't help but open her small mouth. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Tempering the pill. Using the power of lightning to temper the pill. Boom. The powerful lightning instantly smashed into Li Zongjio's pill furnace. Chapter 311. Li Zongjio's move seemed to have absorbed all the lightning energy in the sky into the cauldron in front of him. But at this moment, the cauldron did not explode. Inside the pill furnace, the walls of the pill furnace had turned into a kind of transparent luster, and green light could be seen flowing within. If the cauldron were to explode, there would be no one left alive within 100 meters of the cauldron. Even if they wanted to escape, it would be too late. Those who sensed the danger had already retreated a few steps. However, when they looked at Li Zongjio, who was sitting in front of the alchemy furnace, they saw that he was still sitting there calmly. They did not know if a miracle would happen. They wanted to stay and witness the appearance of a miracle, but they were also very afraid. But with so many people here, even if they wanted to turn around and escape, it did not seem too good. It was better to stay and observe the situation first. The green light that did not bloom had almost pushed the cauldron to its limit. If there was just a little more, it would be enough to burst the cauldron. After all, the cauldron prepared by the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was not the best. But fortunately, this situation did not last for too long. Then, Li Zongjio slapped the cauldron with his palm. The lightning and green light in the cauldron actually followed Li Zongjio's hand and directly entered Li Zongjio's body. Boom! He actually dared to use his body to resist the lightning. This guy was too fierce. Mu Qingyun couldn't help but widen her eyes. Did this guy have to be so ferocious? He had absorbed so much lightning energy into his body. If he couldn't withstand it, it wouldn't be strange for his body to explode. Mu Qingyun couldn't help but widen her eyes. Ordinary people would stay away from the power of thunder and lightning. However, Li Zongjio was different. It had become the best body refining item. Needless to say, after being tempered by the power of thunder and lightning and walking around in his body, his spirit was quite good. He felt as if his entire body had been stretched. When Li Zongjio stretched his body, he opened the cauldron's lid. He slowly stretched out his hand and took out the elixir from the cauldron. Many people widened their eyes and stretched their necks, wanting to see what grade this earth-shattering elixir was. However, what they saw was only a medicinal pill that was completely black. This elixir looked like a crushed charcoal ball. This kid's elixir turned into a charcoal ball. I'm going to die of laughter. Someone saw the elixir in Li Zongjio's hand and immediately laughed. This elixir's appearance was indeed a little horrifying. Looked too shabby. But someone saw Li Zongjio's hand gently rubbing, and peeled off the surface of the elixir in his hand. Finally, a red and blue pill appeared before everyone's eyes. When the aura spread out, everyone widened their eyes. Some people even took a few deep breaths, as if they wanted to absorb more of this elixir's fragrance. Or maybe they didn't believe it, so they inhaled even more seriously. Grade 4 elixir. The invigilating elder landed in front of Li Zongjio. When he saw the elixir, his eyes widened. However, Li Zongjio's previous heavenly thunder-quenching pill had indeed broadened his horizons. This kind of assessment method was also the first of its kind this year, but he did not expect that a heavenly talent like Li Zongjio would actually pop out. To the heavenly star medicine manor, this was definitely a treasure. Boom! Suddenly, a huge figure jumped out from the sky lake in front of them, carrying the water droplets with it. At the same time, an extremely ferocious aura spread out. Many of the students widened their eyes when they saw this figure. Some of the official students of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor gasped when they saw the creature that jumped out from the sky wing. This is the Sky Lake Spiritual Jiao. The Sky Lake Spiritual Jiao appeared directly. This guy really exists. It is the guardian spiritual beast of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. It is said that there is a Sky Lake Spiritual Jiao in the Sky Lake Rainforest. I didn't expect it to be true. After the Sky Lake Spiritual Jiao appeared, it directly sucked the elixir in Li Zongjio's hand from afar. Li Zongjio didn't resist. Of course, Li Zongjio knew about the existence of this Sky Lake Spiritual Jiao. At the same time, Li Zongjio also understood why these people would want to set up this place for the test. They wanted to see if there was anyone who could create a pill that could attract the attention of this guy. None of the people before him could do it after refining their elixirs. Only Li Zongjio's lightning fire dragon elixir had achieved such an effect. When the terrifying lightning entered the cauldron, Li Zongjio's elixir was upgraded by 1 grade. That was why it had such an effect. The Sky Lake Spiritual Jiao only glanced at it for a moment before it disappeared into the lake with a splash. There was no need to doubt the final result of this test. The one who ranked first was Li Zongjio. The elixir that Li Zongjio refined had reached the 4th grade. How old was this guy? He could actually refine a 4th grade elixir. How monstrous was his talent? Ordinary people wouldn't even dare to think about it. Even the drug emperor's disciple, Mu Qingyun of the 4 great young masters. Even the genius from Kuan Castle, Kuan Erasure, was defeated by Li Zongjio. Everyone, please return. Tomorrow, the admission list will be posted at the entrance. If you are admitted, report to the freshman registration office in 3 days. After 3 days of leave, you will officially enter the school. As for those who are not admitted, don't be discouraged. A real genius will not be tripped up by small difficulties. In addition, you will have the opportunity to listen in on the school for a month. After a month, there will be a makeup examination. If you perform well, you can also enter the school. The exam elder said. All of the examinees started to hesitate. Those who performed well could directly enter the school. The 100 or 200 people in front of them naturally had an easy time. However, once the 200 people behind them, they would have to think twice. Did they have a chance? This time, even the person who refined the elixir might not be able to win. If you refine the elixir faster, but the quality of the other party's elixir was better than yours, then under many comparisons, the chances of you being eliminated were also very high. In the end, there were more than 400 people who had successfully refined the elixir. In other words, there were more than 100 people who would be eliminated. This kind of life or death moment had to wait until tomorrow. It was indeed nerve-wracking. Although there was a chance to listen in on the school for a month, the chances of entering the school were extremely slim. Because by that time, in just a short month, there would be a lot of changes. When the time came, the gap between you and those who were in the same batch as you would be greatly widened. Even you wouldn't have the confidence to continue staying here. Li Zongjio didn't stay any longer and turned to leave. He walked back. Although the surrounding people's eyes had already turned into admiration and envy. Without a doubt, with Li Zongjio's strength, entering the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was already a certainty. If even such a person couldn't enter, then there was no need to talk about the rest. Circulating his energy, he dried his clothes. When the lightning entered his body at the end, it almost paralyzed Li Zongjio's body. Fortunately, Li Zongjio's willpower was stronger and he forcefully withstood it. But under such circumstances, Li Zongjio's body was refined to become even stronger. It consumed some of the energy of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's Yuan Rune Array. Hey brother, this friend. Kuan Arashur saw Li Zongjio walking away and quickly went up to him. We met a few days ago. Do you still remember? At the city gate. So your name is Li Zongjio. Kuan Arashur came in front of Li Zongjio and said enthusiastically. After all, he was old acquaintances with Li Zongjio. But he didn't expect Li Zongjio to be so powerful. I didn't expect your alchemy skills to be so powerful. But don't worry, I will definitely surpass you in the future. Kuan Arashur said confidently. Li Zongjio glanced at Kuan Arashur. If it wasn't for him, then the first place in this assessment would naturally be Kuan Arashur. Even Mo Su Li and the others were slightly inferior to Kuan Arashur. At this moment he had an interesting thought. If Kuan Arashi's limelight wasn't like in his previous life and he was suppressed everywhere, then perhaps this Kuan Arashur wouldn't have walked on the path of death. This was an interesting experiment. In your next life. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Kuan Arashur was also stunned. He didn't expect Li Zongjio to be so mischievous. The words just now were just teasing and not humiliating. This point, Kuan Arashur could still hear. Chapter 312. Brother Kuan Arashur, I didn't expect to meet the number 1 genius of the Kuan Castle's Lan family here. Mu Qingyun arrived in front of Kuan Arashur and said. Kuan Arashur also cupped his hands towards Mu Qingyun. Beside Mu Qingyun, there was also another person. It was the beautiful and talented Mo Su Li. Kuan Arashur and Li Zongjio were the ones who defeated her in the examination. She originally thought that it would be fine if there was only Kuan Arashur. After all, the people of Kuan Castle were extremely talented and had a strong background. Even her master, the Medicine Emperor, might not be able to compete with the people of Kuan Castle. But now, an extremely monstrous genius had appeared. Moreover, he looked extremely cold and mysterious, Li Zongjio. This caused Mo Su Li to be shocked and puzzled. However, Mo Su Li did not take the initiative to chat with Li Zongjio. One must know that with Mo Su Li's status, how could she so easily talk to a strange man? However, if Li Zongjio took the initiative to talk to her, then she would consider it. That Li Zongjio, who is he? Mu Qingyun was extremely curious about Li Zongjio. It could even be said that everyone in the examination today was filled with curiosity about Li Zongjio. A person with such terrifying talent must have a great background. Moreover, Li Zongjio's future was limitless. He had already fired the first shot in the city. Soon, the entire Xingyan dynasty would be swept by a storm about Li Zongjio. The appearance of such a young fourth-grade alchemist was enough to shock the entire Sacred Flame royal city. Li Zongjio found Sen Tong in the tea house opposite. At the same time, Yao Lei was also in the tea house. She seemed to be waiting for Li Zongjio to come out. Li Zongjio, how did you do? Seeing someone approaching, San Tong subconsciously took a step forward and stood between Yao Lei and Li Zongjio. In this position, even if Yao Lei wanted to harm Li Zongjio, she would have enough opportunities to eliminate the threat. Yao Lei looked at San Tong and sized him up. Only then did she understand why Li Zongjio didn't seem to like talking to her. It turned out that there was such an outstanding person following him. There was nothing to worry about. It's okay, the results will be out tomorrow. Li Zongjio said. You're not here? Hers faces brows furrowed brows furrowed brows furrowed brows furrowed brows. He didn't even know that he didn't know she didn't was S's. This was indeed a very embarrassing matter. This is in T-test is. Yao Lei's eyes were also shining with fighting spirit. At this moment, she seemed to have woken up. She must have this fighting spirit to walk further on the path of an expert. The reason why a place like the Heavenly Star Medicine Mansion was established. It wasn't just because the teachers here were better and richer. It was more because of the learning and competitive atmosphere here. Only the surrounding pressure could make you constantly improve and have a sense of crisis. Good luck. All right, in the next 6 months, we will probably stay in the city. Usually, I will stay in the medicine mansion. Let's buy a house and you can stay there. Li Zongjio said to San Tong. If they often stayed outside in an inn, it would be somewhat inconvenient. Buying a house and hiring a few servants could make it clean and tidy. Most importantly, for Li Zongjio, it wasn't that difficult to buy a house. Okay. San Tong nodded and the two of them looked at Yao Lei. Do you want to buy a house? I happen to have one here. My aunt asked me to sell it. I can take care of it. If you want it, I can give you a discount. Yao Lei looked at the two of them. San Tong naturally had no objections. He naturally listened to Li Zongjio. It didn't matter where he slept. Even during the Blood Strike Guards training, he had to eat and sleep in the open and had experienced all kinds of difficult conditions. Only by growing up in this tribulation could it become a real steel saber. Let's go take a look. Li Zongjio had a few houses in Monarch City in his previous life, but they had been given to him by others. There were even many places that Li Zongjio didn't know where they were, but they were actually his. This was an awkward situation for Li Zongjio. After all, sometimes, it might just be a casual mention of which piece of land was pleasing to the eye or which pavilion looked good in the dining table. Then, a new pavilion had mysteriously appeared on that piece of land and the owner had changed his name to Li Zongjio. How could Li Zongjio remember so much? Yao Lei was delighted when she heard Li Zongjio agree to take a look. However, on the surface, he still had a cold appearance. In fact, it was not that he had a cold personality. It was just that he had always been in a superior state among his peers since he was young. It was only when he left his master's side that he truly realized how terrifying the world around him was. Geniuses like Li Zongjio were emerging one after another. They couldn't even enter the top 2,000 of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's exam candidates. This was Yao Lei's innate talent. And this was just this year. The genius exam candidates of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor would gather once every year. Every year, there would be new talents emerging. Hence, the pressure would only increase. If she could befriend Li Zongjio and get some pointers from Li Zongjio, she would be able to answer to her smelly master when she returned. Now that she thought about it, she finally understood why her master was so assured to let her participate in the assessment this time around. It seemed that her smelly master had never thought that she would be able to successfully enter the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. After all, the pressure inside was just too great. When Li Zongjio and the rest moved, a group of people scattered across the area. Opposite the tea house, a few people quickly dispersed. One person continued to follow, another went to the tea house to gather information, and the last person went back to report the situation. Yi Guxing's manor. Looks like the biggest suspect is Li Zongjio. He caused me to lose an entire 1,000-year yuan stone-potted plant. I don't care if he has anything to do with this matter. Someone has to bleed. Yi Guxing's eyes flickered with a cold light. In front of him, He had already gathered the 6 experts that he had dispatched. The 6 of them were all at the Sky Origin Ancestor realm. Furthermore, they weren't from Royal City. Since they had escaped after killing someone, this matter was considered to be over. The Saint Flame Empire was so big. It wouldn't be easy to catch these fugitives without leaving any traces behind. Furthermore, there might even be someone helping to cover up their tracks. Tonight, the 6 of you will take his head for me. Also, cripple that Beiho Liang. I don't want to hear any news about him. Yes, young master. After the 6 of them received their orders, they all left. Killing Li Zongjio was still acceptable. However, they had actually wanted to kill Beiho Liang. Beiho Liang was not only a member of the Bei family, but also a disciple of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Killing Beiho Liang would definitely cause a lot of trouble. However, at this moment, Yi Guxing was incomparably furious. He was stamping with rage. Since the Sun Crane was brought back by Beiho Liang, there was no need for him to be alive. A mere disciple of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, let alone the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, even if he was a disciple of the Imperial Martial Pavilion, so what? Don't forget who he was. He was Yi Guxing. His surname was Yi. Chapter 313. Yao Lei led Li Zongjio and San Tong into a manor in the suburbs. It wasn't too far from the suburbs, but there was a large polar garden beside it. It was a place where the locals could wander around, and there were also some spirit beasts that often roamed around. If they walked further out, they would reach fields and hills. The Sacred Flame Royal City was vast, so the farmers could farm here. It was considered development. 2 miles ahead was a bustling street. It was a quiet place in the midst of chaos. Although the surroundings are all wilderness, do you see the open space in front? It has already been bought by the Imperial Martial Pavilion. The Imperial Martial Pavilion will set up a training ground here. Right now, the surrounding villas are all very popular. If you don't have any connections, you won't be able to buy them. Yao Lei introduced. It was obvious that this place was quite far away. This courtyard occupied an area of more than 50 square meters. Although the building was slightly dilapidated, if it was renovated, there would still be a lot of space. How much is it? Li Zongjio asked directly after walking around. If it was really in the downtown area, then Li Zongjio would really have to think about it. After all, when he was refining pills, there would often be a lot of commotion. If he was careless or if something happened, it would be very bad. Moreover, if it was in the main city, he would definitely be monitored by some special envoys in the city. When Li Zongjio killed the Sun Crane last night, he already knew about the coverage of these special envoys. However, with their strength, there was no way they could catch up with Li Zongjio. This was a very quiet place. For Li Zongjio, it was still a good place. In Li Zongjio's opinion, there was no need to waste too much energy on these small matters. It was better to leave more energy for cultivation. My aunt previously listed the price at 37 million gold coins. If you want it, then 30 million gold coins. I'll sell it to you directly. It had to be said that compared to Origin tools and the like, this house was relatively cheap and the size of the house wasn't small. Furthermore, it was located in Royal City. Although it was a little far from the main city, it was still a good deal overall. After all, the Thunder Sound short arrow on Santong's wrist. It was worth over 50 million gold coins. I still have 20 million left. I'll use this pill to pay for the rest of the money. Then, Li Zongjio took out a porcelain bottle. Inside the bottle was the 3-flower energy gathering pill. A 4th-grade medicinal pill. The value of the 3-flower origin gathering pill was at least equivalent to 1 million purple yuan. If converted to gold coins, it would be at least 100 million gold coins. The difference in price was something that Yao Lei couldn't even calculate. She didn't even have enough change, so how could she take advantage of it? Although the medicinal pills would be slightly discounted for alchemists, the cost was at most about 5 million gold coins. However, the medicinal pills that were successfully refined were extremely valuable. This is a 4th-grade medicinal pill. It's too expensive. I can't accept it. When Yao Lei opened the porcelain bottle, she immediately shook her head. Although she now knew that Li Zongjio was most likely a fourth-grade alchemist, this fourth-grade medicinal pill might not be so precious to Li Zongjio. However, for Yao Lei, it was still worth 1 million purple yuan. It was far more valuable than this house. Take it, Santong. In a while, go and recruit some servants to clean up the outside. You can stay here today. Li Zongjio said. Although Yao Lei strongly objected and wanted to return the medicinal pill to Li Zongjio, she was rejected by Li Zongjio. However, in the end, Yao Lei returned the 20 million gold coins to Li Zongjio. Since this was the case, 1 medicinal pill was enough. After that, Yao Lei also gave Li Zongjio some house deeds, land deeds, and other certificates. They were all placed in a box. Inside the box, Li Zongjio also put it away. This transaction was considered complete. Then I'll leave this place to you. If there's anything, you can call us. We all came from Dinghuan province. Naturally, we won't be stingy. I'll live behind you. As she spoke, Yao Lei pointed at a manor not far away. This manor was also where Yao Lei lived. No wonder Yao Lei wanted to sell this place to Li Zongjio. Even if I lived closer to Li Zongjio, I would have lived closer to him. Oh right, I'll get my servants to clean up in a while. You can move in later. Yao Lei said as she turned and left. Seeing this scene, Li Zongjio had nothing to say. She could live wherever she wanted. Santong glanced at Yao Lei. First, he needed to make sure that Yao Lei didn't have any other intentions. If Yao Lei had any ulterior motives, Santong wouldn't hesitate to get rid of her. Li Zongjio was cultivating in the courtyard. Santong went to do some things. He had enough money to hire a servant. Even if it was a year's salary, it wouldn't cost much. At most, he could pay 50,000 gold coins. That would be the limit. Comparatively speaking, some people's money did come quickly. However, there were more ordinary people who had to work hard for their whole lives without any good solutions. Humans were born to be unfair. However, many people died before they could enjoy the unfairness of this world. Therefore, relatively speaking, they were still very lucky. Instead of complaining, it would be better to stay here and spend more time on cultivation. In Li Zongjio's mental strength, 2 figures appeared and landed in his manor. This manor had a front courtyard, a middle courtyard, and a back courtyard. Li Zongjio sat in the garden of the back courtyard, cultivating. Of the 2 figures, one landed in the front courtyard, while the other landed on the roof of the front courtyard. Hiding in such a desolate place, is there no way to take you down? That young Master Yi is really generous. Forget about the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor's disciple, even this unknown kid is willing to pay such a high price. Stop talking nonsense. This is a desolate place, but it is still within the boundaries of Royal City. Hurry up and kill him so that we can leave early. It would be best if we could leave the city tonight. After killing him to silence him. If they could leave the city tonight, their chances of escaping would be higher. The 6 of them were also temporarily transferred over. Normally, they would do some fierce work outside. Now that they were following Yi Guxing's orders, it was naturally not difficult for them to kill 1 or 2 people in Royal City. However, only those who were ruthless enough could do it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the guts to do it. How dare you? Li Zongjio stood up and walked out in a dignified manner. He walked to the front of the courtyard and looked at the figure standing on the roof. When the other person heard Li Zongjio's voice, he couldn't help but jump and land in the courtyard. He looked at the gray-clothed youth in front of him. Hee, kid, we are just taking someone's money to get rid of him. Don't blame anyone when you go down. Just reincarnate properly. Do it. The gazes of the 2 men instantly turned sharp. The person in front of him suddenly released a terrifying aura. A ferocious tiger original spirit erupted from his body. A powerful force seemed to fall from the sky and directly bound Li Zongjio's body to the ground. The other person leaped into the air. His original spirit was instantly summoned and attached to his body. Black Eagle Original Spirit. Boom. 1 trapped and 1 killed. Almost instantly, Li Zongjio was locked in place. However, the killer with the Black Eagle Original Spirit suddenly rushed in front of Li Zongjio and almost pierced through Li Zongjio's body. Li Zongjio's body was like a puff of smoke, and it was directly blown away. Chapter 3:14. Afterimage? The heart of the Black Hawk Essence Spirit expert who had attacked was instantly startled. This move seemed to have a feeling that it had missed, yet it did not feel like it had missed. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation, and for him, it was extremely peculiar. Careful! The Black Tiger Origin Spirit expert that was overseeing above also cried out in shock. Instantly, he saw the afterimages that scattered around him instantly transform into sharp weapons, directly binding towards his body. Accurately speaking, at this instant, it directly bound the Black Eagle Origin Spirit. Boom! This Black Eagle Origin Spirit was instantly thrown onto the ground, and was even pulled up into the air, crashing into the wall. Pang! Even a hole was smashed into the wall. Its mental energy quickly break free. Seeing this scene, the Black Tiger Origin Spirit expert instantly roared loudly. But now, it was already over. On the body of the Black Eagle Origin Spirit, one could see a surge of energy currently burning brightly. Boom! The black flames caused this Black Eagle to instantly become a Fire Eagle. Black Yao fire instantly spread out, and almost without the blink of an eye, it directly burned the body. Burning on the body, there was instantly a loud rumble. That Yuan spirit struggled to land on the ground, in great pain, rolling about on the ground. Even if the people at the side wanted to help, they did not know how to do so. They could only fiercely clench their teeth at this moment. Kill that Li Zongjio first. However, the moment he turned his head, he discovered that there was an additional figure beside him. The young man wore gray clothes, his gaze calm and composed. When he appeared behind the Black Tiger Origin Spirit expert, he did not even have the slightest reaction. If he did not turn his head and see, he would not have known that Li Zongjio had already appeared behind him. What a demonic movement technique! The Black Tiger Origin Spirit expert was secretly shocked. Li Zongjio did not give him too much time to hesitate, directly waving his fist, instantly punching onto the body of this person. However, this expert's entire body was filled with Yuan Qi, and he actually withstood this punch. Li Zongjio's figure also continuously retreated a few steps. After his feet landed, that surge of vigorous energy also spread out from under his feet. Who? I am a dignified Origin ancestor. How could I possibly be defeated by a Origin general like you? That Black Tiger Primordial Spirit expert instantly laughed loudly. At this moment, he also knew that Li Zongjio's strength was merely at the Yuan general level. Thus, there was no need to worry at all. Wouldn't this kind of trash be easily crushed? Immediately, the Black Tiger Primordial Spirit expert roared. Although his companion had died mysteriously, the Black Tiger Primordial Spirit expert was still confident that he could defeat Li Zongjio. If he successfully completed the mission, not only would he be able to complete the mission, he would also be able to obtain more rewards. Li Zongjio swung his arm. He wanted to kill the person in front of him with one move, but he stopped at this moment. He only used his fist to hit the opponent. At the same time, he also exposed his strength and let the opponent know that Li Zongjio was not that terrifying. Therefore, in the heart of the Black Tiger Essence Spirit expert, his confidence rose greatly. Black Tiger Steel's heart. The Black Tiger Primordial Spirit behind him immediately expanded rapidly and landed on that person's body. When this hand reached towards Li Zongjio, it had already turned into a tiger's claw. This tiger's claw seemed to have turned into a huge monster as it slammed onto Li Zongjio's body. Li Zongjio crossed his arms in front of his body to block. However, the moment the opponent's strength increased, Li Zongjio's entire body was smashed away. Bang! His bones should have been completely shattered. Feeling the power of his fist just now, that person was extremely pleased. To be able to easily beat Li Zongjio into such a state and reap Li Zongjio's life was as easy as flipping his hand. However, the scene that appeared in the next moment made his jaw drop. In a move that concentrated the power of his essence spirit, to cripple Li Zongjio was simply an incomparably easy matter. However, Li Zongjio patted the dust off his body and stood up again, looking as if nothing had happened. How is this possible? Li Zongjio seemed to be in a daze as he looked at various parts of his palm, as if checking his body to see if there were any wounds. You don't even know if there are any wounds on your body? You're actually looking everywhere, looking everywhere. Are you trying to provoke me? You're actually fine. Hey, is this all you've got? Li Zongjio looked at the opponent with some dissatisfaction. Being able to land a punch on the famous evil lord of his previous life was already enough to make you famous. However, it was a pity that the current Li Zongjio had yet to become the evil lord of this generation. Furthermore, the person in front of him might not be able to live until then. You have a death wish. Li Zongjio actually dared to boast shamelessly and humiliate him. How could he endure such humiliation? Black Tiger, demonic metal break. The power of the Black Tiger coiled around its entire body. At this moment, it released all of its strength. It was like a gigantic beast swallowing clouds and blowing out fog. It flipped over and pounced towards Li Zongjio. This horrifying roar of a tiger spread out across a radius of 100 miles. This was the figure of a black tiger that reached the heavens. Dozens of miles away, San Tong was walking back when he suddenly sensed a terrifying aura permeating the air. He was shocked. Wasn't this the direction he had come from? Could the Bloodstrike Guard have come knocking on his door as soon as he left? Killing a few people wasn't a big deal for the Bloodstrike Guard. Even if they killed someone in Royal City, as long as they weren't caught, they would still have a chance to settle the matter. Even if they were caught, they would still be able to pull some strings. Given Qingyuan Manor's reputation, there wouldn't be any major problems. Damn it. San Tong immediately retreated the way he had come and used his body to flee frantically. Boom. San Tong's body shot up. However, the situation didn't look good for him. Some of the special envoys in charge of this area in the city immediately chased after the figure that had shot up into the sky. Swoosh, swoosh. In the courtyard, Li Zongjio stretched out his hand in the face of the enraged Black Tiger Yuan spirit. Immediately, a terrifying force spread out from his hand. Die! The Black Day's flames engulfed the Yuan spirit in an instant as the terrifying force wrapped around his body. No! The power of the Black Day's flames pierced the Yuan ancestor's soul. If the Yuan ancestor continued to endure this terrifying torture by relying on his own tenacious willpower, he would be in pain for a while longer. Therefore, the power of the Black Day's flames could be said to be fully displayed by the Yuan ancestor. Chapter 315. Such a powerhouse had finally suffered a mental breakdown. No one could withstand the pain that came from the depths of their souls. A moment later, a pile of ashes appeared in the courtyard. The first person to arrive at the manor was Yao Lei. Yao Lei's residence was close to Li Zongjio's. When she felt the strong fluctuation, she quickly rushed over. Beside Yao Lei, there was a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with spirit. He was not a simple person. When the two of them landed in the manor, the middle-aged man first took a look at the surrounding environment. There weren't many traces of a battle, but the fluctuations in the air were the aura of an Yuan spirit. Clearly, at least 2 Sky Origin Ancestor-level powerhouses had died there. Li Zongjio, what happened? Li Zongjio looked a little battered. After all, he had been sent flying, so there was some dust and mud on his body. However, he still looked calm and composed. There wasn't the slightest trace of panic on his face. It's nothing. 2 bandits barged in and I killed them. Li Zongjio said faintly. Bandits barged in? How dare there be bandits in Royal City? It was simply unbelievable. However, it was good that Li Zongjio was fine. Otherwise, they would have thought that this house had offended someone who had come knocking on their door. As long as you're fine, as long as you're fine. By the way, this is my Uncle Wu Teng. Uncle Wu Teng, this is Li Zongjio, the one who won first place in Black North Metropolis. Greetings, young Master Li. Wu Teng cupped his hands and greeted Li Zongjio. Before he had come, he had made a trip to Black North Jumbo City. The Union Master of the Black North Jumbo City, Han Qinglu, had praised Li Zongjio greatly. Li Zongjio was the only person in the manor who had witnessed the strength of these 2 Sky Origin powerhouses. Either the 2 Sky Origin powerhouses would kill each other, or Li Zongjio would eliminate them all by himself. If that was really the case, then Li Zongjio's strength was really terrifying. The two of them were less than 500 meters apart. If this Sky Origin level powerhouse unleashed any fluctuations, he would be able to rush over within a few minutes. Wu Teng and the rest had only realized that they were nearby when the Sky Origin Ancestor powerhouse had let out a roar. However, by the time they had rushed over, they had already seen two corpses. In other words, Li Zongjio did not use much time to kill them. Thinking of this, Wu Teng was secretly shocked. Although he wasn't weak, it wouldn't be easy for him to finish off his opponents so quickly in a one-on-two situation. Li Zongjio nodded slowly. I don't like to be disturbed. If you want to come again, knock on the door first. Li Zongjio glanced at Yao Lei as he spoke. Yao Lei and Wu Teng had flown in earlier, which was no different from forcibly barging in. Although Yao Lei might have been worried about Li Zongjio's situation, Li Zongjio didn't need to worry. Hence, he had said this directly. Yao Lei's face froze. Li Zongjio was actually blaming her. If she wasn't worried about him, she wouldn't have come to such a lousy place. She couldn't wait to stretch out her leg and trample on Li Zongjio before ruthlessly trampling on him. This shameless person. Just as they were talking, two more figures descended from the sky. Their auras immediately spread out and locked onto everyone in the manor. One person was in front, while the other was behind. The person at the back was on guard at all times. He had seen many desperados. If he was subdued by the other party in an instant, it would be too embarrassing. The person in front took out his warrant first. Special envoy from King City. Please cooperate with the investigation. The special envoy from King City had arrived. The special envoy's duty was to monitor the big and small problems in the entire city. If there were any murders, people fighting in the city, or people setting fire somewhere, the special envoy would also have to take action. Therefore, he was also quite busy. The manor Li Zongjio was in was also within the jurisdiction of these two men. When they felt the fluctuation, they immediately rushed over. They wanted to catch them in the act, but now it seemed that the battle was already over. Which one of you is the owner of this manor? The special envoy's gaze swept across the three of them. I am. Li Zongjio said calmly. Although the special envoy had the right, there were also many restrictions. As long as Li Zongjio did not break the law, they could not do anything. They could not even take action. Li Zongjio killed the two men in his own manner. Hence, Li Zongjio was completely within his rights and was not breaking the law. Was there a fight here just now? As he spoke, his gaze also looked at the two corpses at the side. Although they were charred, it was obvious at a glance. These two men broke into my manor and said they wanted to kill me. So I killed them. Is that against the law? Li Zongjio said calmly. The special envoy wanted to see something from Li Zongjio's eyes. However, he found that Li Zongjio's eyes were extremely calm and did not reveal any information. Just this bit of strength was enough to shock the special envoy. He was so young but so calm. Ordinary people would not be so calm when being interrogated by the special envoy. If it is really as you said, then it is not against the law. Then, who are these two people to you? As he spoke, he looked at Yao Lei and Wu Teng. We are the neighbors behind. We heard some noise and came to take a look, Wu Teng explained. Boss. Just as the special envoy was interrogating and taking down the records, he heard the person who was checking the corpses behind him shout. After hearing this, he immediately rushed to the corpses. The storage ring was still in that person's hand. Most importantly, it seemed to be a temporary storage ring. It could even be said that it was effortless to open it. Hence, the items inside could be easily taken out. The reason why that person was called over by his boss was that he had made an important discovery. In his hand, there was a stack of banknotes from the bank. 500,000 purple yuan. Pass. The signature on the pass was actually the mark of Yi Guxing's manor. These things should have been kept properly instead of being carried around like this. After all, even if they were caught, they would have fewer excuses to defend themselves. Even if they committed suicide, there would be no evidence. What could be found from a dead person who could not be searched? Chapter 316. However, this pass was enough to prove many things. The most direct thing was that Yi Gushing had hired a hitman, and the 500,000 purple yuan was the commission for hiring the hitman. Obviously, they had failed this time. Even the few of them hadn't thought that Li Zongjiu's strength would be so strong that they wouldn't even have the chance to escape. Investigate the other person. If this matter involved Yi Gushing's mansion, it would be a serious matter. It was not something that special envoys of their level could handle. Even though everyone was equal, if something were to happen in Yi Gushing's residence, these special envoys would have to knock on the door politely. After all, the head of these special envoys was once a disciple of the Yi family. All the major forces in Monarch City were inextricably linked with each other. At the same time, they also found a 500,000 purple yuan note and the pass from the other person's body. The head of the special envoys put away the items and asked his subordinates to put the corpse in 2 black bags. They took it away directly. He came to Li Zongjiu and said, "We have a general understanding of the situation here. Do you have anything to add? What will happen if you know who the mastermind is?" Li Zongjiu looked at the special envoys and said. Li Zongjiu had seen the scene just now. At the same time, the matter of the pass could not be hidden under Li Zongjiu's mental strength. Yi Gushing's mansion. He was really bold. However, who was this guy? He actually made the 2 special envoys turn pale. If we find out who the mastermind is, we will handle it according to the law. Li Zongjiu glanced at the special envoys who spoke. Handle it according to the law? He was afraid that there were some people who could not be dealt with even by the law. All right, you can leave. Li Zongjiu waved his hand. He had just taken over the manor, so Li Zongjiu didn't have the time to set up some yuan rune arrays. That was why these people were so arrogant as to descend from the sky. If Li Zongjiu's reputation in his previous life was here, then no one would dare to be so arrogant. If they didn't give him face, then Li Zongjiu would have crippled them in minutes. However, he couldn't be so arrogant now. But what were they doing behind the scenes? Li Zongjiu was not going to let go of Yi Gushing. The special envoy came quickly and left quickly. After finding some evidence, he left immediately. After all, they were all in the city. Now that there were so many things in front of them, and there was evidence that could directly prove that Yi Gushing had instigated the murder, they had to take these things back and destroy the evidence. What a joke! If they really investigated the young master of the Yi family, these people, as well as the families behind them, could only sit and wait for death. Who is Yi Gushing? Li Zongjiu asked Yao Lei. Yi Gushing. That's the 3rd young master of the Yi family? Why, do you know him? Yao Lei said subconsciously. It was obvious that people like Yi Gushing were famous, and ordinary people would not be able to make a move on them. Wu Ting seemed to have thought of something and quickly said, "Young Master Li, the patriarch of the Yi family is the head of the Justice Department of the dynasty. He has great power in the city. Almost half of the people's secrets are in his hands. You should think twice. I still have some things to do. You can leave now," Li Zongjiu said. Of course, he wanted them to leave. Although such a thing happened, Li Zongjiu was fine. Moreover, the special envoy had intervened. Even if there were bandits, they wouldn't dare to come again. I didn't expect that I, the great Li Zongjiu, would be casually called out by an unknown kid. Looks like the name of evil lord has to appear in advance. Then, Li Zongjiu's eyes flashed with an evil light. In order to protect the family, Li Zongjiu had been silent for too long. He had even given in to most of the matters to the extent that he had given in. In that case, it would be better to start with the Yi family. San Tong's figure flew over from afar. He had sped up along the way, but now it seemed like everything was over. Your cultivation hasn't broken through to the origin ancestor realm. If you don't break through, you won't be able to catch up the next time. Li Zongjiu said faintly. Obviously, even if San Tong returned, he would only be giving away one more head. Li Zongjiu's words were very harsh, but San Tong felt that it was true. Li Zongjiu was right. Indeed, he needed to continue improving his strength. Otherwise, if he encountered a strong enemy, it would be difficult to escape, let alone help. Out of the 6 assassins, 2 had died and the mission had not been completed. When Yigushing heard the news, he was so angry that he smashed everything in the house. Anything valuable was smashed to the ground. Just the broken pieces on the ground were already priceless. "Young master, don't be angry." One of the maids that Yigushing usually doted on went up to comfort him, but Yigushing gave her a backhanded slap, sending her flying. With a smack, she fell to the ground, her face swollen. At the same time, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. "Get lost!" Yigushing roared. The maid did not dare to stay for long. She covered her face and left immediately. The assassins who went to assassinate Bei Holiang did not succeed. They did not even have the time to take action. Bei Holiang knew that he was in trouble recently. Therefore, he hid in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor and did not dare to appear on the streets for the time being. Other than the palace, the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was the safest place. The two assassins were only there to test the waters. However, when they saw that Li Zongjio was only a teenager, they could not help but want to take action first. After all, this matter could not be delayed. If they entered the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor tomorrow, they would not know when to take action. It just so happened that Yao Lei, San Tong, and the others had already left. It would be a waste if they didn't take action against such a good opportunity. However, it was only when he made his move that he realized what true regret was. It was too late to say anything now. Night fell. Yigushing knew that the mission had failed so early. Naturally, it was because his subordinates had informed him. Although Yigushing was the third young master of the Yi clan, he did not live in the Yi clan's mansion. Instead, he moved out early. He only needed to return to the Yi clan for a gathering every month. Chapter 317. That night, Yigushing, who had nowhere to vent his frustrations, summoned the dozen or so beautiful maids to the courtyard. The guards who were guarding the courtyard also consciously retreated and stood guard outside the courtyard. No one was allowed to get close to the courtyard. "Today, I'm going to relieve myself properly." Yigushing took off his outer robes and pounced on the maids in front of him. The maids did not dodge, but stood where they were, waiting for Yigushing's arrival. Instantly, the courtyard was filled with waves of noise. If anyone were to witness this scene, it would be a grand occasion. After an hour of lovemaking, Yigushing, who was covered in sweat, sat on top of a maid. There were maids around him massaging and relaxing him. "Get Boss Qian here!" Yigushing shouted at the outside of the courtyard. Logically speaking, there should be some response to Yigushing's order. However, after a long while, there was still no response. This made Yigushing unhappy. Damn it, are these guards looking to die? Just as Yigushing stood up, a voice rang out. He immediately felt a gust of cold wind blowing past his crotch. Feeling the cold wind, Yigushing could not help but close his legs. In a flash, he saw a figure standing on the fake mountain in his courtyard. When he saw the figure, Yigushing thought that he was seeing things because he was too tired. When he regained his senses, he smelled a refreshing fragrance. Yigushing widened his eyes again. He realized that there was a figure standing in front of him. This person was wearing gray clothes and had a small and skinny figure. He stood under the shadow of the fake mountain. However, his eyes were emitting a terrifying and bright light. "Who are you?" Yigushing subconsciously covered his lower body. However, he heard a disdainful sneer from the person. "It's only been an hour. I wanted to let you enjoy it a little longer." Li Zongjio said calmly and walked forward. After walking out of the shadow, Yigushing could see Li Zongjio's face clearly. However, Yigushing realized that he did not know this Li Zongjio. Just a second ago, he thought that some young master was joking with him. But now, it seemed like someone had really invaded his courtyard. If someone had invaded, where were all the guards? Where were the people who were secretly protecting him? Why hadn't they appeared yet? Yigushing was shocked. How did Li Zongjio appear in front of him? "What do you want?" "Seems like you don't know me," Li Zongjio said calmly. His eyes flashed with a playful look. "This morning you sent people to kill me." Hearing Li Zongjio's words, Yigushing realized that the person in front of him was Li Zongjio from the countryside. Although he had never seen Li Zongjio before, It was impossible for a mere candidate from Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor to have the ability to kill someone in the royal restaurant without being discovered. Therefore, Yi Guxing did not suspect that it was Li Zongjio who did it. It was one of the young masters in King City who was on the same level as him. Because there was no evidence, there was nothing he could do. Since the other party had made a move, there was nothing he could do. The reason why he wanted to kill Li Zongjio was just to vent his anger. Whether Li Zongjio died or not did not affect him at all. However, when Li Zongjio stood in front of him, the whole situation changed. He did not know how Li Zongjio appeared. From the looks of it, Li Zongjio could enter his courtyard without alerting anyone and appear in front of him. This meant that he had the ability to kill Zhang Hexuan. You killed Zhang Hexuan. Yi Guxing was not stupid. He understood in an instant. Initially, he just wanted to find someone to vent his anger on. However, he did not expect to find the culprit so coincidentally. After knowing who the culprit was, Yi Guxing was no longer anxious. He calmly found a long robe and put it on. The maids around him had already fainted. You are very capable. How about this? You follow me from now on. You killed Zhang Hexuan and caused me to suffer losses. I won't take revenge on you. Yi Guxing said calmly. Yi Guxing's lips curled into a confident smile. So what if Li Zongjio was capable? Yi Guxing was so arrogant that he had offended many people. There were many people who could sneak into Yi Guxing's residence. After all, the security here was not strong. However, with the name of the young master of the Yi family hanging here, no one would dare to mess around. As long as the Yi family did not fall, Yi Guxing could continue to be so arrogant. No one would dare to find trouble with him. Did this Li Zongjio want to kill him to silence him? Even so, he had to consider the consequences carefully. The consequences of killing Yi Guxing were not something Li Zongjio could bear. If you kill me, your entire Li family will be bathed in blood. Looking at Li Zongjio's silence, Yi Guxing continued. In fact, he even sat down and looked at Li Zongjio, waiting for him to surrender. After all, there was not a single person in the royal city who did not know of Yi Guxing's background. With such strength, no one would dare to mess around. If Yi Guxing were to die today, even if they had to flip the entire Holy Flame royal city upside down, they would have to find the culprit. Without a doubt, the power that would be used would be terrifying. During this process, many people would also suffer. Yes, I've left my last words. This is the privilege of being the third young master of the Yi family. Why am I such a nice person? Li Zongjio said. He then took out the mysterious thunder hammer from his sleeves. This thunder Xian hammer was very useful in silencing people. It didn't have any markings on it. When this thunder Xian hammer was used, it was just a blunt blow. It could cause a lot of damage. Therefore, there was no trace of it at all. It was not a weapon with any special properties. Therefore, when Li Zongjio walked out and saw the mysterious lightning hammer in his hand, Yi Guxing's expression changed. Just as the other party's expression changed and he was about to say something, Li Zongjio had already lifted the hammer and swung it down. He wanted to channel his energy and escape. However, when Yi Guxing tried to circulate his elemental energy, he suddenly realized that the energy in his body had become empty. There was no way for him to concentrate on controlling the elemental energy. At this moment, Li Zongjio had already taken a step forward. Then, the mysterious lightning hammer smashed down with a loud bang. This hammer did not land on Yi Guxing's head, but between his legs. Yi Guxing was sitting down at this moment. Hence, the location of the hammer was extremely accurate. Chapter 318. He trembled all over. He had never experienced this kind of pain in his life. He wanted to cry out, but he found that he could not make any sound. His mouth was blocked by a ball of cotton. Oh, is this the diamond bird? It didn't explode. Li Zongjio looked at the area between his legs. There was no egg or blood flying out. However, when he looked at the mark on his hammer, he realized that he had smashed it into pieces. The dignified third young master of the Yi clan had actually been severed by someone. This was simply more painful than killing him. It was even a kind of naked humiliation to the Yi clan, directly stepping on the Yi clan's head. Li Zongjio's hammer made Yi Gushing realize the power of these country bumpkins. You people, where does your sense of superiority come from? Do you have an extra leg? If you do, you should take it out. Li Zongjio laughed disdainfully. Yi Gushing had just recovered from the pain. After all, he was a martial artist. However, even after he woke up, he could not accept the result. Yi Gushing sat on the stool. He did not even dare to lift his robe to look at his lower body. He just stared at Li Zongjio with his eyes wide open. Are you serious? Let me go. Tell me, what do you want? I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. This is my storage ring. There are 5,000 vitality stones in it. I'll give you 20 million purple yuan. I'll give it all to you. Don't kill me. I promise I won't investigate you. I just beg you, let me go and get treated now. Although this kind of injury was rare, it was not difficult to treat it. Therefore, as long as there was a chance, there was still a chance. Li Zongjio took the storage ring from the other party. Although money was a worldly possession, the more the better. Li Zongjio didn't mind having too many of these things. Take out as much as you have. Furthermore, this kid actually had 5,000 vitality stones in his hands. Previously, the Snow Elixir sect had brought so many people to excavate the ruins. Although the level of the ruins wasn't too high, the amount of vitality stones they had found was limited. However, Yi Gushing had a total of 5,000 vitality stones on him. This was shocking. Even Li Zongjio could not help but be tempted. Given Li Zongjio's strength, he could break through to the origin ancestor level in a matter of minutes if he refined these vitality stones. When his strength reached the origin ancestor level, he would basically not be afraid of anyone at the ancestor level, even if a Yuan monarch level powerhouse came. Li Zongjio might not necessarily be unable to fight back. Therefore, Li Zongjio accepted all of these items without any hesitation. Is this worth this much? Li Zongjio said disdainfully. Yi Gushing seemed to have found a ray of hope when he saw Li Zongjio accept his things. As long as he could use money to buy something, there would naturally be no problem. In his opinion, there was still a chance. Stall for time. The longer this dragged on, the more beneficial it would be for him. The experts of the Yi family would definitely come knocking on his door. Furthermore, the special envoys in the city would also sweep across the sky from time to time. Once they discovered that something was wrong with Yi Gushing's residence, they would definitely come over. Then he would be saved. Also, I have collected many vitality weapons. They are hidden in the treasury of the Yi family. Give me some time, and I will definitely retrieve them and hand them over to you. There is also a level 5 vitality weapon in my collection. I received it when I was an adult. Its power is boundless. A level 5 vitality weapon could only be used by Yuan monarch level powerhouses. A weapon that could unleash its power would definitely be envied by everyone. The reason he had kept such a level of vitality weapon was because Yi Gushing had yet to master it. A level 5 vitality weapon was indeed very tempting. Yi Gushing might not be able to control it, but that did not mean that Li Zongjio would not be able to do so. Given Li Zongjio's strength, even if it was a grade 6 Yuan weapon that was not the best of the best, he would still be able to control it. However, this vitality weapon was in the Yi family's courtyard. For Li Zongjio, it was equivalent to not having it. Having done this, Li Zongjio naturally did not intend to let Yi Gushing leave. Of course, he did not intend to kill Yi Gushing so quickly. Forget it. Looking at you, you don't have anything else to offer. As he spoke, Li Zongjio also smashed his iron hammer towards Yi Gushing's knee. Bang, bang. The two hammers landed. Yi Gushing's knee was smashed once again as he fell to the ground. Originally, Yi Gushing should have had some sort of vitality weapon on him. That way, he would not have been defeated so quickly by Li Zongjio. However, Yi Gushing was too confident. He was confident that no one in Monarch City would dare to touch him. Therefore, he had removed all his vitality weapons when he was having fun. He did not want these things to affect his performance. However, it was precisely this behavior that allowed Li Zongjio to take him down easily. Close your eyes and enjoy. Tomorrow morning, you will find that you are already dead. Li Zongjio's voice was transmitted into Yi Gushing's ears like a ghost. Yi Guxing's consciousness gradually dissipated as this voice rang out. He closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Blood flowed continuously from the wound. Even if one was cultivating this yuan energy, when the blood in one's body flowed continuously and the wound did not heal, one would know that one's death had arrived. However, Yi Guxing could not wake up. The entire courtyard was shrouded in a gloomy and terrifying atmosphere as a faint mist rose. Tomorrow, there would be major news that the third young master of the Yi family had actually died from bleeding and shock because his family jewels had been destroyed. Such a tragic death had thoroughly infuriated the Yi clan. The Yi family was a big tree with deep roots, but at the same time, a big tree would attract the wind. Hanging on this big tree, it was inevitable that they would be blown away by the wind. Among the powerful families, there would naturally be opponents. A bloody storm was brewing. Li Zongjio, who had caused this to happen, was like a person taking a stroll in the courtyard of the Yi family. In the basement of the Yi family, there were 2 grade 7 yuan ancestor experts who had also been sucked dry. Only skin and bones were left. It was quite tragic. Other than that, the guards of the Yi family had also died in the same way. After a round, Li Zongjio did not find anything special. Taking advantage of the darkness of the night, he disappeared from Yi Guxing's residence. After a round of looting, in the end, besides some yuan weapons, there was also a deposit of 50 million purple yuan. There were close to 6 million purple yuan. There were also 5,000 yuan stones. This was not much, but it was enough for Li Zongjio to squander for a while. When the sky gradually brightened, an incomparably loud scream rang out from the backyard of Yi Guxing's residence. It pierced the silence of the morning. Chapter 319. For the sacred flame royal city today. What broke the silence was a terrifying piece of news. Yi clan's third young master, Yi Guxing. In his own home, his lower body was smashed, his knees were broken, and he died tragically in the courtyard. Anyone who heard this news would shout, "Impossible!" That was the third young master of the Yi clan, Yi Guxing. Even Z was famous among the hedonistic sons. It was said that a few days ago he had lost an invaluable coral yuan stone in a bet. The formation of such a vitality stone would take thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years to form. Yi Guxing, on the other hand, was killed. Among the group of royal city's special envoys, a storm was brewing. One should know that these special envoys would not be able to escape the blame when the storm blew over. At this moment, the imperial court was definitely going to be turned upside down. As for what exactly was going on, the people outside naturally had no way of knowing. However, Beiho Liang, who was hiding in Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. After hearing this news, he was also in disbelief. It was too shocking. He had already received news that Yi Guxing had sent someone to deal with him. That was why he was hiding in Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, not daring to go out easily. However, he did not expect this to happen. In less than 2 days, Yi Guxing had actually died. The person who dared to kill Yi Guxing in the city must be someone who was on par with the Yi clan. Otherwise, no one would have such strength, and they would definitely not be able to bear the consequences. For ordinary people like Beiho Liang, even if they wanted to enter Yi Guxing's mansion, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. As the news of Yi Guxing's death spread, most of the prodigal sons also reined themselves in. No one knew what kind of storm this matter would cause. It was said that the murderer was untraceable. He sneaked into Yi Guxing's mansion silently and killed all the guards. Even the 2 experts who were in charge of protecting Yi Guxing in the dark died in the secret chamber. There were no signs of a fight at the scene. The attacker must have been killed in one move. Someone with such strength had to be at least a king-level master. Furthermore, one king-class expert was definitely not enough. With such a huge commotion and the smell of blood to cover, one person was definitely not enough to kill so many people at the same time. There had to be 2 or more people involved. Faced with the many difficult questions in the investigation, it could be said that these people from the Special Envoy Department had some difficulties. The news of Yi Guxing's death was quickly suppressed. Some details were suppressed, but this fact was not forcibly suppressed. This was a matter of life and death. Moreover, The person involved was a member of an important family. It was even more impossible for them to let it go easily. They would definitely investigate to the end. However, although this matter was big, there were also other matters. Not everyone was interested in the Yi clan's matters. Outside the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor, there was a long queue. A large number of people had gathered, and a notice board was erected at the entrance. What was announced on the notice board was the list of people who had successfully entered the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor this year. The order of the rankings was also based on the list. Those who were ranked high would naturally be at the front. No one could know the news in advance. Therefore, if anyone wanted to know, they would have to come and see it for themselves. Kuan Arashir tried his best to squeeze in. When he saw the name directly, Kuan Arashir was so excited that he almost jumped up. However, he was only ranked second. He's only ranked second. This Li Zongjio is really strong. Kuan Arashir thought in his heart. When he saw Li Zongjio's name hanging high on the list, although he was a little depressed, he did not feel defeated. Instead, his fighting spirit was reignited. Indeed, there are many experts in King City. Kuan Arashir thought in his heart. The results of the announcement were not too surprising. There were a total of 300 people, and the names were clear. Moreover, the list announced by the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor did not allow anyone to question it. It was an existence of absolute authority and fairness. Who would dare to say anything against the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor? That guy actually got first place. Bei Ho Liang was also mixed in with the crowd. When he saw the list, he was shocked. Just by looking at the following names, one would know how valuable the first place was. Third place, Mo Suli, Medicine Sovereign's disciple. The Mo clan was a rather prosperous clan in the north. Fourth place, Mu Qingyun, one of the 4 great princes of King City, the future successor of the Mu clan. At the same time, he was also a rare genius of the Mu clan. Fifth place, a boy named Wang Xian. If he guessed correctly, he should be a disciple of the Wang clan, the #1 clan in Nantan State. The sixth person's name was a little unfamiliar. Almost no one had heard of it before. No one knew where this person came from. She was called Shueyu. There was actually someone with the surname Shue. This was simply unbelievable. There was actually such a name. Shueyu was a girl, but to experienced people it should be an alias. No one knew where she came from to have such a big background. She could even write an alias on the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor's announcement list. No matter what, she was not someone to be trifled with. Sigh, it's a pity that Crane died. Otherwise, he would definitely be on the list. I wouldn't have ended up like this. Bei Ho Liang grumbled in his heart. San Tong squeezed out of the crowd and impatiently told Li Zongjio the news of him passing. Li Zongjio had no intention of coming to see the rankings. Instead, he had been cultivating in the technique practicing room. He had just received a large amount of vitality stones. Of course, he had to seize the time to cultivate. In the tea house, Mo Suli and Mu Qingyun sat together. When their subordinates came to report the news, Mo Suli was so angry that he could not even drink his tea. He was actually being suppressed by someone else. Third place. What kind of humiliation was this? She, Mo Suli, was the disciple of the East Victory Medicine Sovereign. Now, she was ranked third. Obviously, she was not satisfied with this result. Third place is not bad. Look, I'm only fourth. This Kuan Arashir is a strong opponent. As for Li Zongjio, it seems that he is not on the same level as us. Mu Qingyun said without a care in the world. He didn't really care about reputation and whatnot. As long as he could enter the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, it was enough. As for other things, it did not matter if he was slightly worse. After all, there were too many geniuses in this world. Even they might not be able to firmly stand at the top. Every year, new geniuses would appear. The pressure of competition was too great. But then again, I don't seem to see Li Zongjio. That guy, doesn't he care about his ranking? Chapter 320. If that was the case, then this Li Zongjio was too arrogant. He didn't even care about his own ranking. Did he really believe that he would be able to advance? In the same tea house, there was also a young lady sitting on the second floor. The young lady was also dressed in a youthful and energetic manner. Her hair was casually tied up, but her jet black and beautiful eyes were filled with charm. "Miss, it's dangerous outside. Let's go back quickly," a maid beside her said worriedly. At the same time, she sized up the surrounding environment. It seemed that in her eyes, everyone was a bad person. No matter who approached, they would be a threat. The black-haired young lady in a white dress waved her hand indifferently. On her jade-like wrist, there was a white jade bracelet. On the bracelet, there were exquisite carvings. "It's okay, little Chun. However, these people are really strong. My teacher has been teaching me for so long and praised my talent. However, I'm still only sixth." The young lady seemed a little discouraged. Although she had worked very hard, the result this time was still not ideal. The sixth place was Shueiyue. Who would have thought that the young lady in front of them was Shueiyue, who was ranked sixth on the freshman ranking list? Although the young lady didn't look simple, it was really difficult to link her with the sixth place on the freshman ranking list of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor. "Miss, you're only 16 years old. They have been cultivating for so many years more than you," the maid, little Chun, said helplessly. If they were at the same age, the young lady's talent would definitely be at the top. However, the young lady had to compete with these people who were above 17 years old. There were even some who were already 19 years old. If she were to compete with these people, she would naturally be at a disadvantage. Between geniuses, the greater the difference in age, the greater the disadvantage. Even if there was a difference of a few days, there would be a world of difference. After all, when it came to breaking through, it might be a difference of a few days, but it would be a difference of an entire realm. "Oh right, they are all older than me." Shueiyue's face suddenly lit up. She seemed to be happy. "Hey, have you guys heard? I heard that the top of the assessment this time, Li Zongjio, is only 16 years old. Oh my god, did he start cultivating in his mother's womb? 17 years old. I heard that the person ranked third, Mo Suli, is already 17 years old. That Mu Qingyun is also 18 years old. If that's the case, then with Li Zongjio's strength, he's probably at the top of his peers. It's possible. I've never seen such a monstrous genius in Royal City. This year's batch is said to be the batch with the highest quality. The 7 people on the freshman list almost all have the strength to challenge the seniors. They're so fucking fierce. How do you think they did it? They're only in their teens and they've already reached a level that we'll never surpass in our entire lives. Sigh, everyone is the same. Everyone has their own way of doing things. The people at the table behind seemed to be discussing. After Shueiyue heard it, her black eyes widened, as if they were shining. "Little Chun, listen. That Li Zongjio is actually the same age as me. He's only 16 years old. How could that guy get first place?" Shueiyue seemed to be somewhat unconvinced. "Could it be that his teacher is more powerful than my teacher?" Shueiyue asked doubtfully. Her words made little Chun jump in fright. "Aya, young miss, don't talk nonsense. If the teacher hears it, you'll be punished to copy the 100 herb scripture. In Royal City, there are only a few people who can surpass Mr. Deshun. Young miss, you can ask Mr. Deshun and you'll know the origin of this person." Little Chun said. No, if I go back to the palace, I won't be able to come out. Anyway, I've already passed the assessment. Why don't I just stay in Heavenly Star Medicine Manor and study for a period of time? I want to see the origin of this Li Zongjio." At such a young age, he was able to suppress several famous geniuses. Even Mo Suli was left behind. Li Zongjio instantly became the hottest topic in the city. Some information about Li Zongjio also appeared in the eyes of the major forces. After knowing that Li Zongjio was just someone who came from a small city, these forces became interested in Li Zongjio. He was a very dazzling dark horse. If they could recruit this Li Zongjio into their camp, that would be a great help to them. Li Zongjio was born with a clean background. It was almost impossible for him to be a spy sent by anyone. He was the best target to recruit. He also didn't have any major forces supporting him. If they didn't seize the opportunity and he was recruited by others, he would become their strongest enemy in the future. When it came to geniuses, they couldn't be too hasty. If they really refused to listen and cooperate, then it wouldn't be too late to destroy them. Li Zhongjiu's manner. At this moment, there were hundreds of stones placed beside Li Zhongjiu. These were all yuan stones. However, they had already lost their luster and didn't have enough energy. The energy that was previously stored had all been devoured and absorbed by Li Zhongjiu. Li Zhongjiu had 4 great yuan spirits. Therefore, the yuan energy required for this breakthrough was also incomparably vast. If he only relied on the yuan arts to obtain it, it would take an unknown amount of time before he could break through to the yuan ancestor realm. Therefore, yuan stones and elixirs were the best supporting partners. As long as there were enough yuan stones and elixirs, Li Zhongjiu's breakthrough speed would soar like a great rock spreading its wings. The shackles of the realm were nothing to Li Zhongjiu. The breakthrough experience of his previous life could be easily passed in this life. The hundreds of yuan stones scattered on the ground were already worth a lot. According to the market price, the value of a yuan stone was around 10,000 purple yuan. If one were to buy it, that would be the price. Of course, the cost was also controlled. If one had the means, one could buy it for 500 purple yuan. However, the price was just that high. Therefore, using these yuan stones to cultivate was an extremely expensive matter. Almost no one could afford it. Generally, they would only use these yuan stones to break through their strength at this crucial moment. Just one more step. Li Zhongjiu took out the last 3-flower yuan gathering elixir and threw it into his mouth. At the same time, the yuan arts within his body began to circulate. Grade 7 yuan arts, heavenly void divine body record. Boom. Finally, the restriction that was restricting him instantly collapsed under Li Zhongjiu's attack. The yuan bead within his body also became the size of a fisheye. The appearance of such power made Li Zhongjiu's heart tremble slightly. The vast power of the yuan bead instantly poured into his entire body. At the same time, the 4 great yuan spirits within his body began to howl. The blood dragon yuan spirit did not rely on the yuan arts to break through, but on a yuan skill. Li Zhongjiu had obtained the white god endowment, ancient golden body art, and Hell Prajna technique from the 4 great yuan arts. However, the corresponding attribute of the blood dragon soul had never appeared. Therefore, there must be something hidden within the blood dragon soul. When Li Zhongjiu broke through to the yuan ancestor realm, the blood dragon soul also responded. The blood dragon soul also reciprocated. It seemed that the strength from before had also been connected at this moment. Blood spirit world? Li Zhongjiu read the information in his mind. The first thing that popped up were these 3 words. Chapter 321. Blood Spirit Plane? Li Zhongjiu immediately understood when he read the name. He recalled the time when he fought with the Blood Dragon Sovereign. That guy was also gritting his teeth, but he didn't see any elemental energy bursting out. However, he saw that the sky was gradually turning blood red. At first, Li Zhongjiu thought that this guy was using his own elemental energy to change the surrounding environment. However, because the elemental energy attribute was rather special, he couldn't sense it. From the looks of it now, it wasn't because of yuan power. That power was called the blood spirit plane. The blood spirit plane uses murderous aura to create a space. It's a skill to train one's murderous aura. Li Zhongjiu analyzed in his heart. As an evil lord, he could naturally see through the essence of these yuan skills at a glance. In that case, he would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. Most of the time, he needed to understand something in order to do it well. Just as Li Zhongjiu was about to continue cultivating the blood spirit plane. After studying it for a while, he sensed that San Tong was waiting outside the house. He got up and went out. He saw San Tong standing outside the courtyard. "What's wrong?" Li Zhongjiu asked. Seeing Li Zhongjiu come out, San Tong's face was filled with anxiety. "Young master, the results of the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor are out. You're first." San Tong was obviously very excited. He hadn't been this emotional for a long time. One had to know that the first place of the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor's newcomer ranking was destined to have a bright future. Li Zhongjio's future was limitless, and such an honor was extremely rare. Li Zhongjio, who came from a small city, had actually killed his way out of the encirclement and became the center of attention in Royal City, the place where dragons and tigers roamed. How could one not be proud of this? Li Zhongjio was not arrogant. For Li Zhongjio, this was not a challenge at all. If he could not get first place, then Li Zhongjio might as well hang himself at home. San Tong, remember this. If you want to stand at the peak, you have to focus on the peak first. Li Zhongjio said calmly. Then he waved his hand. Go back and cultivate. There's nothing to look forward to. Li Zhongjio said calmly. After that, he turned around and returned to his training room to continue his cultivation. San Tong watched in shock as Li Zhongjio left. He felt an indescribable admiration for Li Zhongjio's level of awareness. At the same time, Li Zhongjio's words exploded in San Tong's mind. If you want to stand at the peak, you have to focus on the peak first. How could Li Zhongjio be satisfied if all he saw were the mediocre people around him? Naturally, it was impossible. That was why Li Zhongjio had never put these people in his eyes. All he wanted was to reach the peak of his strength. Therefore, the young master's achievements were far above these people's. After San Tong understood this, he immediately entered a state of cultivation. The most important thing now was to break through his own level. At the same time, he had to cultivate the Dark Yuan Pierce to its peak state. This was San Tong's current task. Many people were celebrating that they were able to enter the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. However, there were also many people who left dejectedly. Yao Lei had originally wanted to congratulate Li Zhongjio, but she couldn't believe that Li Zhongjio had actually obtained first place in the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor's assessment and become this year's newcomer king. This year's newcomer king was especially low-key. After obtaining such a result, there was actually no response from Li Zhongjio. Even those who wanted to recruit Li Zhongjio discovered that the manor's doors were tightly shut. When they saw this, they could not help but feel admiration from the bottom of their hearts. Being able to obtain first place in this assessment did not fall from the sky. When Yao Lei sensed this atmosphere, she became even more focused and worked even harder on her cultivation. In Wu Teng's opinion, this was a good thing. However, it seemed like this girl's thoughts were mostly on Li Zhongjio, which was rather dangerous. In Wu Teng's opinion, Li Zhongjio seemed to be at a higher level than them. This was a direct perception of a powerhouse. He could clearly sense that Li Zhongjio's aura was stronger than ordinary people's. Their gazes were different. To be able to nurture such a person with such lofty aspirations, Wu Ting did not know who Li Zhongjio's master was and which sect he was from. This is just the beginning. I'm afraid that this girl will be thrown to God knows where before long. Wu Ting thought in his heart. Yao Lei's talent was indeed not bad. However, compared to a true demon-like genius, she was still far from it. If she could not recognize the difference between herself and others, it would be a very painful thing. At this moment, Yi Manor. As the Yi family's manor, it looked dark and solemn from the outside. From afar, one could feel a strong murderous aura. It was because of this that the Yi family was able to suppress the surrounding citizens who wanted to cause trouble. If not for the existence of the Yi family, there would be people who would be even more unbridled in the royal city. In the great hall of the Yi family, a long purple gold wooden coffin was placed. The person lying in the coffin was Yi Guxing, who had been tortured to death. Yi Guxing wasn't very old, but he died early. If Yi Guxing was killed by a sword, it wouldn't be a big deal. After all, the Yi clan was a big tree that attracted the wind. They had offended countless enemies. Naturally, they had to pay for what they had done to the Yi clan. It was inevitable that some of the henchmen of the families that had been investigated by the Yi family would come out. The Yi family head, Yi Lan Tian, did not wish for his descendants to be incompetent. Therefore, even if there was danger outside, he would let them out and let them grow up independently. This matter naturally had to be investigated thoroughly. However, Yi Guxing had not been killed by a sword. Instead, he had been tortured to death in an extreme way. This was a provocation to the dignity of the Yi family. Such an action would also lead to the crazy revenge of the Yi family. No matter who you were, you would have to face the wrath of the Yi family. There were 4 people kneeling in front of the coffin. These 4 people happened to be the ones who had been searching for an opportunity to assassinate Beiho Liang. Originally, there were 6 of them. However, the other 2 went to assassinate Li Zongjiu and never returned. They did not even have time to understand the situation before they were brought here by the Yi family. They were surrounded by the Yi family's cold and ruthless guards. The swords in their hands would be unsheathed at the slightest movement. To them, there was no chance for them to leave. "Tell me, how much do you know about this matter?" Yilan Tian asked in a low voice. From the beginning to the end, his back was facing these people. After these few assassins left Yi Gushing's place, Yi Gushing met with such a thing on the same night. It would be hard to believe that this had nothing to do with them. "Master, we really don't know. We only took young Master Ye's money to kill him." A young master from a second-class city and a country bumpkin who isn't even from a third-class city. Do you think the 2 of them have such ability? Yilan Tian laughed coldly. He turned around and looked at one of the 4 people. Where his gaze landed, that person's heart skipped a beat. Immediately, he saw a cold light falling towards him. The sword fell, and a head rolled to the ground. After all, he was a rank 2 origin ancestor expert. However, under this sword, he did not have any ability to retaliate or react. This was because the speed of this sword was too fast. A head rolled on the ground. The black-faced guard put away his sword and stood at the side as if nothing had happened. The other 3 people were so frightened that they trembled. One of them forced himself to be brave. "Master, please give us a chance. Within 3 days, we will definitely find the murderer who killed young Master." This person was quite smart. He actually wanted to redeem himself by doing good deeds. However, a mocking light flashed across Yilan Tian's eyes. Chapter 322. My son is dead and you still want to live for 3 more days? Yilan Tian turned around. At this moment, the 3 people kneeling on the ground immediately realized that something was wrong. However, it was too late. Behind him, 3 guards immediately stepped forward and beheaded the 3 people on the ground. What was the big deal about killing people? What was the big deal about using private punishment? To Yilan Tian, these things were extremely normal. Who would dare to investigate in the Yi family's territory? From the beginning, he did not intend to learn anything from these 4 people. Their status was too low, so there was no need to spend so much effort. There are not many people in Monarch City who dare to touch the Yi family. The Mu family is neutral. Right now, the only one who wants to compete with me is Old Man Sima. Sima family, now that one of my Yi family's seedlings has died, your Sima family will not have an easy time either. Yilan Tian said. At this moment, the aura of a king was released from his body. No one dared to doubt Yilan Tian's strength. To be able to sit in the position of the head of the Ministry of Justice, Yilan Tian did not rely on his mouth. The 13 guards of the Ministry of Justice were his sharp weapons. However, in this imperial court, there was only one person who could be his enemy. This person was the Iron Pestle Sima who was bestowed by the emperor. The Sima family commanded the special envoys of the 13 prefectures. The power in their hands was more terrifying than Yilan Tian. Only the people of the Sima family were not afraid of the Yi family at all. The Department of Special Envoys. A department that was not greatly affected by the Ministry of Justice's jurisdiction. There were many experts in the department. Father, the Sima family is definitely involved in this matter. The city is filled with special envoys of the Sima family. Third brother was lying in the courtyard for an entire night and only died before dawn. There must be special envoys covering for him. One of them was tall and slender, with delicate features. The aura he exuded also seemed to indicate that he was well-read and had a wise and far-sighted aura that seemed to have seen through the myriad of worlds. It was the second young master of the Yi family, Yi Lonmoon. When Yi Gushing died, Yi Lonmoon was naturally the happiest person. Everyone knew that his father doted on Yi Gushing the most. But this time, Yi Gushing was defeated. Even the 9-star protective pearl that he always carried with him was taken away. In the end, he was brutally killed. As a result, among the successors of the Yi clan, only he and his eldest sister were left. As for his eldest sister, she was currently serving as the captain of the 13 judicial guards. Clearly, his father was preparing for his eldest sister to serve in the judicial guards. However, he was naturally the only one who could control the entire situation. Even when he was asleep, Lone Moon wanted to laugh out loud. If it wasn't for this accident, it was very likely that Yi Gushing would have been directly cultivated into a talent. However, he also believed that Yi Gushing would either get rid of Siye or take on an idle position and then wait for the end of his life. The Yi clan's business would no longer have much to do with him. It doesn't matter if the Sima family has a share or not, I won't let them off so easily. I just pity my Xing. Yi Lantian looked at Yi Gushing's body and his heart was filled with melancholy. He didn't expect that the curtains to the war with the Sima family would be drawn with the corpse of his most beloved son. Don't you want to prove yourself? Then go and complete the task that Xing was unable to complete. Kill Li Zongjiu and Bei Holiang. Since Xing wants them dead, then they can't live. Yi Lantian said slowly. Hearing Yi Lantian's words, Yi Lone Moon bowed. Yes, master. However, a cold light flashed across Yi Lone Moon's eyes. It was obvious that Yi Lantian doted on Yi Gushing. Li Zongjiu's information had already been released. He was the #1 person in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's new disciple assessment. With such a standard, he would definitely be noticed by the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. If Yi Lone Moon were to make a big fuss, he would definitely be noticed by the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. At that time, even if he was a disciple of the Yi family, he wouldn't be able to escape death. The Heavenly Star Medicine Manor and the Yi family were on two completely different levels. The Yi family was still in the imperial court, fighting for power and maintaining their position. However, the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's position was unshakable. Even if Yi Lantian wanted to go to the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, he would have to inform the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor and he would have to wait outside. It wasn't impossible for the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor to directly reject Yi Lantian's entry. Both parties had different priorities and their positions in the city were also different. If Yi Lantian wanted to kill Li Zongjiu, he would have to do it within these 3 days. Otherwise, if he waited until Li Zongjiu entered the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, it would be even more difficult. Moreover, if he killed Li Zongjiu, he would have to bear a greater responsibility. The Yi family was filled with murderous aura and people could feel it from dozens of miles away. An unusual cold wind blew across the sacred flame royal city. On the day of Yi Gushing's funeral, the dozens of beautiful maids who were in the courtyard were all sent to the cemetery to be buried with Yi Gushing. More than 10 lives were nothing to the Yi clan. After the list of new students was released, everyone was given 3 days to sort out their matters. After 3 days, they would once again bring along their own proof of identity, which was something similar to the admission form that was issued by the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Hall, to complete some of the procedures to enter the academy. It was worth mentioning that during this period, they could only come out for 2 days a week. For the rest of the time, they had to stay in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Other than the tuition and miscellaneous fees, they also had to pay some accommodation fees. Compared to the facilities built by the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, the tuition and miscellaneous fees were considered very cheap. There were also some new students who came from far away. They had enough time to bid farewell to their friends and family. After all, they could accompany you to participate in the assessment, but they couldn't stay with you forever. If you were to stay in Royal City for a long time, you would have to apply for some documents. If you couldn't prove that you were here to do something, and if you couldn't contribute anything to Royal City, you would be thrown out even if you were a beggar. That was the way it was. Li Zongjiu had been cultivating for the past 3 days. Although there were undercurrents in Royal City, Li Zongjiu wasn't affected much. It was worth mentioning that Santong had finally broken through to the ancestor level last night. Unfortunately, his original spirit hadn't awakened. Although he had lost the opportunity to become a genius, it didn't mean that he couldn't become a strong person in the future. The Dark Yuan spike was also in his hands, and he was cultivating every day and night. Compared to the past, his current cultivation was in a more focused and efficient state. This was a huge improvement for Santong. Your Dark Yuan spike isn't explosive enough. Furthermore, it's not hidden well enough. Li Zhongjiu's voice was heard. Santong also stopped at this moment. In front of him was a wooden stake that had been smashed. Young master, you're out? Although you don't have an original spirit, it's very important to obtain an original spirit. Don't rush, Li Zhongjiu said. Yes, young master. Tomorrow, I'll enter the mansion to learn. In 3 months, you can travel outside and find a suitable origin beast. The origin weapons in your hands should be enough to protect your life. In addition, I got this a few days ago. I've erased all the traces on it. This origin weapon can provide you with a final layer of protection. With that, Li Zhongjiu took out a belt. The belt was inlaid with 9 silver pearls. This belt was called the 9-star protective pearls. If Yi Guxing had been wearing this equipment that day, it wouldn't have been easy for Li Zhongjiu to kill him. Therefore, he could only say that this guy was unlucky. Although Santong didn't know the name of the belt, he knew that Li Zhongjiu had helped him too much. Did he mean that he wanted him to leave? Could it be that he didn't perform well enough? Santong thought to himself. On second thought, this was indeed the case. He had stayed by Li Zhongjiu's side for so long, but he hadn't produced many origin beads. At the end of the day, he was still too weak. Don't disappoint me. After Li Zhongjiu finished speaking, he left alone. Santong took the exquisite belt in his hands and put it away. His eyes were filled with emotions. He had been by Li Zhongjiu's side for less than half a month, but every day had been happier and more satisfying than when he had been in the Blood Strike Guard. Therefore, he couldn't let Li Zhongjiu down. Don't worry, young master. I definitely won't disappoint you. Santong wasn't a pretentious person. After Li Zhongjiu left, he also left. Chapter 323. Tomorrow was the day of registration, and 7 days had passed since the start of the school year. According to the agreement, Li Zhongjiu once again came to the remote blacksmith shop. There was still a shabby signboard hanging high above the blacksmith shop. It looked really shabby. Anyone who saw this blacksmith shop would definitely not walk in. When Li Zhongjiu walked into the blacksmith shop again, the old man was still lying on the ground. He saw that the old man was still lying on the rattan chair in the courtyard, but he was holding an exquisite box with both hands. It seemed that no one could take his box away from him. This was his lifeblood. In the eyes of outsiders, this scene was also very funny. Boss, my weapon is done. Hearing Li Zhongjiu's shout, the old man slowly woke up from his sleep. You're finally here. In order to make this weapon of yours, I overdrew my strength for the next 10 years. Come and take it yourself. I don't have the strength to give it to you. The old man opened his eyes weakly and glanced at Li Zhongjiu. The reason why he was lying on the rattan chair was not because he was sleeping, but because he was recovering his energy. This was because the creation of this weapon was quite difficult for him. Therefore, he had overdrafted a large portion of his energy before he was able to complete the creation of this weapon. Thank you. Li Zhongjiu took the box. He opened it and took a look. Immediately, he was completely fascinated by the flying knife in the box. Only when you really looked at it, you would know how charming this flying knife was. That perfect streamlined body. It was as if he could travel through any kind of storm with ease. On the blade, there was also a Bai Shao Hua carved with extremely fine knife skills. Moreover, this Bai Shao Shao flower wasn't just for show. Once the throwing knife pierced through your body, you would know what it felt like to have your body blossom. This thing was very accurate in telling you what it felt like to have your body blossom. It was a blood trough used for bleeding. As for the gem, it was hidden inside the blade. It looked extremely strange. The gem itself had been cut into an extremely thin plane and was integrated into the flying knife. What an exquisite throwing knife! Not only did it have a strong penetrating power, but it was also tough enough to be comparable to a level 5 yuan artifact. In addition, the power of the gem was hidden within. Even a grade 6 origin item might not be able to withstand the effects of this flying dagger. because of the enhancement from the boundless stone. Therefore, the flying dagger itself carried the spiritual penetration damage. Basically, if one was stabbed by a flying dagger, there was no chance of survival. With this saber and my current strength, I might even be able to kill Yuan Wang. Li Zongjio sneered. Now, he could be considered to have the ability to protect himself in this city. A few days ago, he had killed the Yi Guxing from the Yi clan. Although the other party might not be able to discover him, the methods used by such a large clan were usually extremely extreme. Therefore, they would more or less have some new tricks up their sleeves. Of course, Li Zongjio had to be prepared. In order to forge such a flying dagger, he had probably spent most of his life's effort. However, it was also extremely beneficial for him. After all, forging experience of this level was extremely rare. Li Zongjio left this remote place and entered the Thousand Flavors Herb Hall to purchase some medicinal herbs. Elixirs could not be stopped. Since he had such unique conditions, Li Zongjio naturally had to use his own strength to refine some powerful elixirs to help him break through his cultivation level. However, when it came to refining elixirs, Li Zongjio still lacked one thing. It was his own medicine cauldron. In his previous life, when Li Zongjio became famous, the Xingyan dynasty also specially forged a 9-element golden bottle cauldron and sent it to Li Zongjio's hands. It had to be said that the 9-element golden bottle cauldron at that time could be said to have gathered the best craftsmanship. Various masters gathered together in order to forge this medicine cauldron. The final result was naturally very obvious. Li Zongjio also used it very smoothly. However, for now, the 9-element golden bottle cauldron had not been forged yet. Therefore, Li Zongjio could only buy some ordinary medicine cauldrons to hold on for now. If he wanted to buy things here or outside, of course, he would go to the 7 Stars Fire Room. Even at this time and night, the 7 Stars Fire Room was still in a state of operation. Li Zongjio walked in and went straight to the 2nd floor. On the 2nd floor, there was a young lady who came to receive him. When she saw Li Zongjio appear, the young lady also bowed and greeted him. "Good evening, sir. May I ask what kind of yuan weapon you want to buy?" "Medicine cauldron." The young lady nodded. Looking at Li Zongjio's slightly thin and weak appearance, he was not a good material for practicing martial arts. Most likely, he was also an alchemist or a pharmacist. "This way, please. Our 7 Stars Fire Room has a total of 7 types of cauldrons for sale. They are all custom-made and can be used in batches. In addition, you can also design and customize your own medicine cauldron. You can also engrave your name on it to prevent it from being lost." The young lady saw that Li Zongjio's eyes did not linger on the medicine cauldrons. In her heart, she knew that these medicine cauldrons were not worthy of his attention. Since that was the case, she led Li Zongjio to the side. "In addition, we also have some medicine cauldrons for sale. The specific amplification effect of these medicine cauldrons has not been appraised yet. The purchase risk is higher. If you are interested, you can come over and take a look," the young lady said. Medicine cauldrons were not the only medicine cauldrons for sale. There were also many other things. It was similar to a kind of suggested auction. The 7 Stars Fire Room provided a platform and took a considerable commission from the middle. They directly bought the items from the other party. The other party would name a price, and after selling it, they would split the money. They only earned and did not lose. Moreover, they did not have to bear the consequences. At the same time, it could also increase their reputation. Such an easy and pleasing method really made the 7 Stars Fire Room a target for many yuan weapon shops to imitate. However, this huge monster was still a huge monster. Even a simple trick could succeed. Due to the fact that the platform itself was relatively large, the process was also very clear and simple. At the same time, it also added a kind of Taobao fun when shopping. "Let's go and take a look," Li Zongjio said. The young lady immediately led the way in front. Those who were able to buy medicine cauldrons were mostly alchemists and did not lack money. "Miss, you clearly have a medicine cauldron. Why do you still want to buy one? We don't have much money on us." Little Chun followed beside Shueyu. Seeing Shui Yu looking at the medicine cauldrons on the display rack with interest and then looking at the price tag, little Chun frowned. After all, one had to pay to buy things. The two of them could be said to have sneaked out. Originally, they did not have much money on them. Moreover, looking at the price tag on the medicine cauldrons, each price was like a grimacing evil spirit that wanted to eat people up. I'm going to the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor to refine medicine. I can't take out my medicine cauldron. Wouldn't that expose my identity? Shui Yu said. Obviously, she had her own considerations about this matter. She was not as silly as she looked. Someone with strong mental strength is coming. There were many crystal boxes in the exhibition hall. These boxes were filled with medicine cauldrons and some fire discs. The fire discs were used to increase the power of the flames. When placed under the medicine cauldron, the powerful fire discs could amplify the power of the flames by several times. Of course, this also relied on the power of the Yuan inscription array. Such an item would definitely be of great value. Shui Yu's gaze looked over and immediately saw a gray-clothed youth following behind a 7-star fire room salesperson at the entrance as they walked in. Li Zongjiu's mental strength was naturally strengthened after wearing the flying knife made from the boundless stone. Therefore, he could clearly sense the slight movements in the surroundings. He immediately looked in Shui Yu's direction. However, Shui Yu quickly shifted her gaze and pretended to look at the medicine cauldron beside her as if nothing had happened. Hee, little Chun, the opportunity is here. Look after that gray-clothed kid. We'll take whichever cauldron he chooses and pay before him. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.